Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good afternoon and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 629 of the Daily Beaver. Well, I guess somewhere in the country it's still morning. Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is gonna take, I forgot what date it is. Oh, yes, Friday, of course, April 18th, 2025. And it is definitely a gray day here at the Beaver Lodge. Um, it is a Good Friday, so I guess the gray skies are a little appropriate for the moment. I'm just gonna switch my lighting here because I'm coming across looking a little pale here. All right. I'm not sure that that did anything to help. All right. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. We thank you for your support. As you know, kids and cubs, if you were with us this morning, it's a double beaver good Friday today. We've had debates over the past 2 nights, 2 nights, yeah, 2 evenings, I guess I could say that, as you know. And unfortunately, the people who staged the debate made themselves more the story than the actual story, which was supposed to be the debate. So it ended up pulling focus. And we had to deal with that a lot on our show. And which means we couldn't really actually get into the actual debate itself. And things that were said. So, on this episode, for those who are looking for a little bit of touch on that, we'll go into that. We'll geek out a little bit and have some fun. You may hear that I am a little stuffed up. So, a couple of times you might see me duck out from the camera. It's just that I'm going to be taking care of that. As you know, I'm having a little bit of a cold. But other than that, I think I'm in good spirits. Right? That's how my mental health is doing today. So I hope that we will have a good show. And thank you for those of you who are here in the chat joining me live. I see. Oh, for some reason, the mouse is not connecting and not wanting to let me see who is in the chat. So let me go this way then. And let's see. Who do I see in the chat? I see Kit Tavi G here saying time warp. Not exactly sure what that means. And on the YouTube feed, there seems to be a little bit of a freeze here. So I don't know who's here. I know that Kit Carlos was in here a little earlier. And I believe Kit Linda M is here. So hello to you. And there are a couple of other people watching, I see. So welcome to the show. And I hope that you will have a good time with us today. I did thank the sponsors. Okay, so we can just get into it. Yesterday we had the English language debates, and the evening before we had the French language debates. And I'm actually going to start a little bit with a section in the French language debate. And the reason for which I am doing this is because there was a section in the French language debate identified as sovereignty, I believe. That was not in the English side. So there were maybe things addressed there in French that people didn't get to hear in English. The other categories, there was a lot of overlap. But other than that, uh, in this section, uh, there were some things that might have been a little more unique. So we'll go into that, and after that, looking at that section, then we'll go into the English debate from yesterday and try to pick up some sections over there and look at some interesting things that happened. As you may know, if you watched our morning coverage, I had stated that my impression was that Carney was the clear winner here and that Pierre didn't help himself. Um, he might have, again, done well with his base, uh, but in terms of bridging a gap or gaining ground, I don't think that's the case. And overall, uh, I thought it was a bad debate performance that had signs that he knew how much was riding on it, ended up being a little nervous at the beginning, and finally, when things weren't going his way, because one of the candidates on the stage decided to do things that maybe were not expected. And so Pierre's attacks weren't landing as they should. And I noticed that there was a bit more resorting to rhetorical safety blankets from that point on, and some performances that weren't what one would expect from this gentleman, I will say. Uh, the critique or the feedback that I've been seeing from the analysis and the analysts and the pundits is that they think that he did well. So I might be a little off, and I admitted that this morning. But there was one person seem to see it my way, and that would be Justin Ling. And I'd like to read this into the record before we start. Uh, and then you tell me if you see what I see in the chat if you're here, or if you see something different. And I tried to look at it from both perspectives, right? I tried to look at it from a general perspective, about three perspectives, really. The general perspective, if I was just scoring a debate dispassionately, what would I expect? What would I expect to see? What level of substance would I expect to see? And then I tried to look at it from an overall general Canadian electorate stance. Would this play? Do I think this play? Do I think this plays or doesn't play? Does this land? Is this a good strategy? Do I think the Canadian public would be open to this type of argument or not? And then I try to look at it also from just the respective bases of each party. So there are some things that some candidate could be doing in a debate where you could sit there and you go, "Oh, that's gonna sink them," and maybe there will be a cost to it, but it might reinforce something in the base in terms of get the vote out. So it depends what your objectives are during the debate, right? Whether or not you're trying to reach out to a broader group or you're just really trying to solidify your own groups to come up. And then performances get read in different ways, yeah, depending on the lens that you're looking through to do the analysis. So here, this is from Justin Ling. Opinion in the Toronto Star. Election debates are core to our democracy, but this change made a mockery of them. In an election campaign that has been obnoxiously micromanaged, where the aspirants to lead our country have treated journalists and, by extension, the public with varying levels of disdain, last night's debates should have been a breath of fresh air. Instead, the whole affair was hijacked by right-wing conspiracy-minded outlet Rebel News and another right-wing network. We should blame the wildly inept Leaders Debate Commission for letting it happen. These debates are critical parts of the democratic process, and they don't deserve to be turned into a mockery. Established in 2018, the Leaders Debate Commission has three jobs: help the major broadcasters and parties agree on a format, set eligibility for the participating leaders, and accredit media wishing to cover the event and ask questions of the leaders afterwards. The commission bungled those first two jobs. having suddenly moved the debate up 2 hours the day before and disinviting the Green Party the morning of. On the question of what media would be allowed into the venue to manage the high volume of reporters and to avoid the prospect of one outlet monopolizing the floor, the commission set a simple rule that each outlet could field one reporter to quiz the candidates. Inexplicably, in the days before the debate, the commission broke its own rules to allow, and I'm quoting Rebel News founder Ezra Levant here, quote, not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 rebels to ask questions of party leaders. It had requested space for all 16 of its staff in the venue. The rebel got its way by sending a series of legal threats in which Levant insisted that if other outlets with the same owners, such as CBC and Radio-Canada or the Ottawa Citizen and the National Post, each got a reporter in the scrub, then the rebel deserves the same level of access. The commission rejected this baseless argument, but wrote to Levant that, quote, rather than devote further resources toward answering your letters and a potential injunction, they simply would roll over. Rebel could have 5 reporters. Rebel wasn't the only right-wing outlet represented. There was also Juno News, another media outlet with opaque funding sources and a penchant for spreading half-truths. Early in the campaign, the outlet ran a disgusting and factually baseless piece attacking Mark Carney's child for their gender identity. Even before the debate concluded, the staffers for the Rebel and Juno raced to the microphones from which journalists would quiz the leaders. Over the course of the scrubs, where each leader had 10 minutes to take questions, Rebel and Juno managed to ask nearly half of all the questions, despite this one outlet, one question rule. The Rebel and Juno's questions were inane. Several were about Rebel News itself and its supposed marginalization. One accused the NDP of being a dangerous radical party, while another questioner asked Carney to list as many genders as he could. It was all a sideshow. Some of the questions were longer than the answers as the Rebel staff used the opportunity to grandstand. Myself and other reporters shouted, "Get to the question," when their rants went on particularly long. Levant has since complained that this constitutes heckling. Girl, please. Sorry. Inside voice. Rebel News, if you're unaware, is a right-wing media outlet that has reveled in spreading misinformation, taking positions which help its fundraising efforts, and whipping up hatred against our politicians, including conservatives. Full disclosure, by reporting on Rebel earned me a libel lawsuit from Levant in 2021. Levant ultimately asked to withdraw that lawsuit, which I agreed to in exchange for a donation to the charity. In the past years, the Commission has tried to ban Rebel and other partisan media outlets from participating in the scrubs, but Levant successfully had the decision overturned in federal court. This is all particularly galling when you consider that Rebel is registered with Elections Canada as a third-party advertiser. According to a financial disclosure documents filed with Elections Canada, the Rebel raised more than $20,000 in the first week of the campaign and spent $8,000 in partisan activity. Rebel hired a US-based firm to do voter outreach. Levant told me in an email that reporting this information to Elections Canada was a, quote, prophylactic registration to cover their outreach to Rebel supporters, quote, in case of any of those phone conversations contained partisan content during the writ period. Rebel has previously had to pay thousands in fines for conducting inappropriate election advertising. Hours after sending me that email, Levant was in front of the Radio-Canada building in Montreal, advertising a website which claims that Mark Carney stands with Hamas. Because that's what journalistic outlets do. In summary, the Debate Commission, in a rash and inexplicable decision, decided to give right-wing partisans space to disrupt a critical part of a national leaders' debate. As such, we missed a critical opportunity to hear our leaders pressed on important policy issues. It's not too late to rectify some of these problems ahead of tonight's debate. The Commission could permit Green co-leader to join the debate stage. It could recognize that Rebel and Juno have already taken up far too much space and forbid them from running tonight's press conferences. But the most useful thing they could do is also the thing they're not going to do, dissolve themselves and let the media figure out the debates themselves. So, sorry, kids and cubs, I misframed that as an article that was sharing my opinion on Pierre's performance at the debate. It was sharing my opinion on what was going on with the Federal Debate Commission. There is another piece by Justin Lang out there that was looking at indicating something similar to what I'd seen. And hopefully I will locate that, but that was another piece that I definitely wanted to read into the record. All right. So let's get on with the actual debate. Oh, here we go. Kit Mark, still watching from the UK. Hi. Thank you for joining. Lovely to see you. Wow, what a treat. Okay. Let's start with the French debate here. I am using the CPAC feed in French with the translation because this would go too fast for me to do simultaneous interpretation for you myself. A note here that Mr. Grizzly is not at the control and he has the one with the registration with YouTube so that there are no ads. So an ad might pop up at some point. I will try to catch it quickly, stop it, and then bring us to where we need to be so that you don't have to. But the flow may be interrupted a couple of times as a result of that. So I just wanted to let you know beforehand. All right. So in order to do this, I need to share the screen. Pick up the French one. There we go. It brings me to this page. Okay, maximize it. The volume is up. All right, and this is the beginning of the section on identity and sovereignty.
We'll be moving on to the next theme, identity and sovereignty. It would be good to put flags out on our balconies to show our Canadian pride. I was surprised to see how proud people were. We're Canadian. We will not be Americans. I think we're going to be more united. I think I haven't seen this in a long time. So, yes, we've all seen this across Canada. All commentators have seen this. There is a wave of patriotism in Canada, but we've also seen deep divisions. In the West, Alberta says it may separate. We've got 6 months to the next Prime Minister to meet its requests. Otherwise, there could be a crisis of national unity that is unprecedented. In Quebec, the Parti Québecois is nearing power and is promising a referendum during your term, possibly. At the end of the day, are we not as divided or as the U.S. or very divided? We'll go around the table. Mr. Poilièvre first.
Unfortunately, yes, there are divisions all across Canada, all kinds of divisions. And I think that we've had a federal government that has divided everyone, pitting regions against one another and various groups against one another. Social classes pitted against one another. We need to unite Canadians. We need to unite around our common identity that includes the French language, our English language, our military, the promise of Canada that anyone who works hard can have a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street.
Thank you. Mr. Singh? Is there not division in Canada?
When I travel throughout the country, I observe great unity, great solidarity. Canadians want to defend our country. They do not want to become the 51st state. They want to protect what is dear to our hearts. When I talk to people about identity, people tell me our identity is taking care of one another. We have programs for that. For example, our healthcare system. We need to protect these systems and strengthen them, not cut them or sacrifice them. Now is the time to bring people together to get things done with our solidarity.
Thank you. Mr. Blanchet.
I think that people confuse certain things. Some people think that all Canadians should follow one single line behind the federal government, and so we only have one economy. Mr. Trump's fear, or rather the threat of Mr. Trump, has to be taken seriously, but instrumentalizing it for nation building in Canada, where Quebecers are being asked to be attached to their language as a frivolity, I can't agree with that.
Thank you. We'll go back.
Quebec's uniqueness is also economic, and we have to be on the same level playing field.
Is there a division in Canada?
Well, there's always a risk, but I think that right now, Canadians are uniting, and they want to unite. Canadians want a positive agenda. There is solidarity here. Healthcare is a right here in Canada. It's not a big business like in the United States. We put a value on diversity here. And we also put importance on judicial independence. And, you know, the potential of Canada is enormous because we're all in this together.
Thank you. So open to.
All right, so in this section right at the beginning of this, you will notice a certain little irony is that Pierre Poilièvre is the only one of the leaders who started talking about what other people are doing to divide and blamed a party. Right. So everybody's, yeah, you know, there are some issues like this, but talking about, you know, the need to unite or having seen, you know, new unity or stuff like that, or that what unity cannot come at the expense of. But negative Nelly, again, oh, Canada's abusive boyfriend, always willing to tell us how we're broken, was there. Now, you will notice, please pay attention to Pierre's demeanor throughout these sections, because his demeanor contrasts. For those of you who watch the English debate, you will see that his demeanor and his pace of speech and everything is contrasting very, very, very much with what he delivered last night. So we saw two, if you watched French and English and you understand both, you saw two Pierres. It wasn't the same person who showed up for both debates. Wasn't wearing the same personality, the same mask. Right? So let's just see what else do we have here. Kit Lanham, is the sovereignty referendum thing coming from the people in Quebec or just the politicians? Kit Carlos is saying it's from the politicians. The people want none of it, and yeah, that is the case. Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who was the leader of the Parti Québécois, I believe that's his full name, and he was leading in the polls, and he might still be leading, but they were in majority territory. And as soon as he started getting in majority territory, he started talking about a referendum definitely would be proposed the next time around. And then his popularity and the popularity of the party started to drop pretty much soon after that. I don't know if they're all the way back, if they've been pulled back in the polls, because there is great displeasure with the CAQ at the moment, and definitely a desire for some change. But yes, since then, it would seem that the public opinion has tightened up a little bit between the two parties, and I'm not sure. Yes, the PQ goes back and forth in and out of majority territory. And of course, as you know, the game is going to change in June at some point when the Liberal Party of Quebec elects its new leader. But right now, with just a generic Liberal Party of Quebec, they are running in second place from the CAQ in public opinion. Third place in public opinion, but second place in how that translates into seats. And with a new leader, there are things that, you throw a new person in the dynamic, and the dynamic changes or doesn't, depending on the impact of the leader. So, but yes, at the moment, it seems to be something that the Parti Québécois is very much pushing as probably a get out the vote for the party faithful. And hopefully that will maintain them in majority status so that they could pursue it. All right. And if Carlos, if I assume that you are in Quebec, so if I got any of that wrong, please just send me a little gentle correction, and I will definitely read it in. But that's my sense of what's going on there. Okay, so let's continue on with this section here in identity and sovereignty, and take a little more look at what it is the people have to say. All right.
Debate, Mr. Blanchet. How can we think that Quebec, if it's on its own and independent, could be stronger to stand up to Trump and in comparison with all of Canada right now?
Does Canada need to be a province of Mexico to be allied to Mexico against the states? We're not in that debate it this week, but Quebec does not need to be a Canadian province to talk of its own voice. Our economy is doing fairly well, but our economy is different to that of Canada's, and the announcements that have been made have helped Ontario Steel, Ontario Banking, the Ontario automotive industry to fund
aluminum.
Western oil. That is what those were the investments made. The counter tariffs on aluminium are very harmful because people have to pay for the aluminium they sent to be processed in the States. There's then re-imported into Canada. $2 billion to the States in countervailing tariffs. For that, nothing happened. But now, $2 billion has simply been signed by Mr. Carney for the automotive industry. He sees himself as a negotiator, but he hasn't even been re-elected yet. Should Quebecers not make sure that they have a strong voice that collaborates? I've already said that we would work with Canada, but I've asked to speak to Mr. Carney, but he's never called me. He's never wanted to talk to me. I want Quebec to be at the negotiating table for a stronger negotiating position with Canada.
Is there also not a risk, like was the case with the automotive industry in Ontario, to this? Because this could happen to the detriment of saving other industries in our country. If we put all our eggs in the automotive basket.
No, not at all. For example, our counter tariffs for the aluminum sector and steel, no, they're not bad. They're not bad at all.
We import aluminium cans from the States that comes from our
that's
mined
not
aluminium
right at all. If I may, the counter tariffs for the aluminum sector are $30 billion. The counter tariffs, or $30 billion rather, the counter tariffs for the automotive sector, that's $8 billion. That's a huge difference because, there are a number of reasons for this. But our counter tariffs, it's not just for Quebec, it's for the workers there, are much higher.
I don't know where that money came from, and I don't know when the industry will get that money.
We are using the counter tariffs.
What was it, $2 billion for automotive? Immediately for them, because we're shaking in our boots when the automotive industry is at risk. But aluminium was not supported. There's no processing capacity. There's no help for temporary work losses. $2 billion for the automotive industry, but nothing for aluminium. When it's Ontario, the checks come flying, but it has to be the same for other places,
right,
especially Quebec.
That's the numbers. Your numbers are wrong.
Mr. Poilièvre.
Yeah, but he's got a point when he says that the weakness in our country right now threatens our unity. Your Liberal government for 10 years has the worst track record on immigration, on housing, on inflation, on crime. But doesn't it embarrass you to ask Canadians for a fourth term of office after the worst Liberal record?
I've just become leader. And
same members of Parliament, it's the same old promises.
Leader. And I've been Prime Minister for 1 month. And in that month, we have an agreement with the provinces. We have an agreement with Australia. We have an agreement with France. We have an agreement with the United Kingdom. We have set up negotiations for the next Prime Minister, and that's a decision that people at home are going to make. And we've done all of that in this short time. And we've also cut the tax. We've put in place programs for workers who are most affected by this tariff war, and all that in 1 month.
Okay.
Quebec sent a letter with 5 requests. No one responded to it. We made requests, but we keep hearing, oh, we've spoken to provinces, things are great with Quebec, but we didn't get any response to our letter. Is it because of the final straight of the election campaign? What's going on?
Mr. Carney, you...
Okay. So here at Kits and Cuts, we had this whole section, and this one in particular, wanted to bring it to you to see Monsieur Blanchette in particular. You have Pierre, of course, once again coming in trying to accuse the Liberals of being dividing and bringing in, the subject of immigration because he always does that. But here you got Blanchet. You'll see Blanchet, and this is the thing that I noticed yesterday is that the hands up and the hands down and the like this. So the Quebec is so hard done by narrative, and when he does it with a touch of playfulness and humor, like this, where somebody's just saying silly, and it's like, yeah, listen, you're being silly. Here's how it is. It works for him. But when it has a little edge of frustration, right, it's different. Now, Monsieur Blanchet opened up the debate. The piece of context that you need to know is right up in the debate in this first exchange with Mr. Carney. He was out there and saying, "Well, you're told that you have all this experience and all this, and all this ability to manage a crisis. Well, I've seen no evidence of it yet." Right? Uh, so Blanchet is clearly on a mission to cut him down as much as possible. Blanchet's objective is to make Carney as unattractive as possible to the Quebecois, to paint him as someone who just does not care about Quebec whatsoever, might be able to speak the language a little bit, but doesn't understand the flavor, will always put Ontario before, to make the case that they really need him to be there to speak for Quebec because they really, really, really just cannot rely on Carney to do that. So that's his goal and that's his objective here. Now, when you have that goal and your objective, you're constantly seeking to take someone down. That can have an edge. If you're a little more invested. And Blanchet at this point is rather frustrated in the campaign because nothing he's done has been able to break through. And again, at the beginning of the debate, saying, I've waited for this opportunity for a long time. So right off the bat, you knew he was frustrated. So all throughout the debate, there's that little current of frustration, and you can see it in the way that he pulls back his face and the hands up and down, and he's trying to occupy a lot of space. When you see the pictures for the debates promoting them, he's somebody declared it action man stance. He's always like spread wide apart and arms like this. So he's taking up space. This is for Blanchet. This is not a French language debate for French Canadians and everybody who speaks French or wants to listen to a debate in French. This is the Quebec debate. Right? So his goals and his objectives are a little different than everybody else's. I see in the chat here, people always ask again, why is he in the debate? The reason he is in the debate is because he's the leader of a federally registered party. All you need to be a federal party is registered with Elections Canada. There's no other criteria. To be on the debate stage, you have to have at least a seat in Parliament. And there are two other criteria. I think you have to meet one of the two, 4% national vote, or running in 90% of the ridings. Now, the Bloc Québecois doesn't have seats, doesn't have candidates in 90% of the ridings. But their vote in Quebec, because it's the second largest province, is so large that when you spread it out on national, well, it usually comes at 5, 6, 7, 8%. So they meet the 4%. So leader of a federally registered party with seats in the House with a national vote of at least 4%. That's all that's required.
I know, but and I do understand why the Green Party was ejected from this debate, because they didn't meet the criteria, and that was their own choosing, right? They decided to do vote splitting and try and bring people onto the Liberal side of the ledger in many of their ridings. It's still, they're actually a national party, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, because they're running in 260 something ridings this time, so that's not the 90%, but they also dipped below the 4% in the national poll with all the vote migrating to the Liberals in this polarized vote. So they didn't meet either of the two criteria. Now, the problem with the Federal Debate Commission, as we mentioned, is those lists of candidates were available as early as the 7th, and they waited 9 days. They let them know on the morning of. The numbers that they had were the numbers at the time of registration, And all the documentation said it was at the time of registration because you could lose some candidates along the way
Mhm.
for certain reason that no longer meet it. So it was at the time of registration. So they did. So there was technically no reason to remove the Greens if they had followed their original rules. But they decided that since the situation for the Greens changed, that they would change the rules.
Mhm.
And it seems that they were lobbied pretty hard by other parties to do that.
Oh, is that the case? I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, there were, a few parties that were lobbying for
Mm.
that to have more time.
I'm going to assume. I'm
Right.
going to assume one of those parties would be the Conservatives because the last person Pierre Poilièvre would want to face in the debate.
Yes. Yes, I'm not sure which two, but it would seem that of the two, right? I mean, the Conservatives and the Bloc would have had an interest because, well, Jonathan Penneau is the person that speaks the best French other than the François
Right.
Blanchet there, right? Native French speaker. So, you don't want him there.
Mhm.
And, well, the NDP has always had some issue with the Greens because I think they believe that the environment is their turf.
Yeah, that's
So,
yeah.
Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May, there's no love lost there.
Mhm.
Yes, Jagmeet Singh has told a few whoppers about Elizabeth May somewhere along the way in campaigns. So, that's a bit of the stuff that's going on there. And of course, Kids and Cubs, if you're listening audio, Mr. Grizzly has joined us. Hello, sir.
Hey, yeah. So I just had got out of my last meeting, and I have a few more minutes before I have to head back out again. So I thought I'd pop in for a little bit.
Glad you did.
Well,
Yeah.
double booking on a Friday, right? So why not? No, I still have a few extra things. I got to take off at 2:00. I have a few extra things I have to take care of today. So I've got about 10, 12 minutes before I have to venture on out. But I thought I'd pop in for a short little visit to say hello, and how you going to everybody who joined in today, this morning, and again this afternoon. And hopefully, the poll's close today. I think I'm going to have a chance to cast my ballot today, actually.
Oh, nice.
Well, I know it's 18th, 19th, 20th, and I think 21st are early voting, and
Yes.
it's right over here. It's on my way to where I have to go, but if there's a big lineup right now, which I doubt, I'll be able to cast my vote before I get to my next appointment at 2:15. So.
Oh, good stuff. And without prying, you had a good appointment.
Oh yeah. This morning was
Good.
productive.
Excellent.
Might be able to get some work out of it. So we'll see.
Excellent. Good.
Everything is all lots of
Good vibes.
lots of good vibes, but lots of what is it? Things in the frying pan, fingers, lots of fingers in different pies. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
the feelers are out there. Let's put it that way. So we'll see if something comes of this.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Okay. Let's see what we have here in the chat there with this. Okay. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Whatever our personal views about whether or not it's okay or it's not okay, or it's a federal, those are the rules. That's all that's required.
Yeah. Our
So,
personal views
I mean,
have nothing to do with
personal views have nothing to do with it. You're free to not like it, whatnot. But those are the rules, and every party is following the same rules. Those are the standards. So you don't have to run candidates in every right. You don't have to, right? The Communist Party is there, the Marxist Leninist Party. There's 16 different parties that are registered. I mean, we only get to see 5 here because a lot of them are not running candidates and everything, but they are federally registered parties, but they're not on the debate stage because they don't have 4% national support or a seat in the House.
And what's the new one? The Canada
Future Party.
Future. I wanted to say forward. I knew it. Yeah, because there is I've seen a couple of posters just in the last 2 days for the candidate in my riding. I don't know anything about her. I haven't read their platform. I don't think they anticipated getting any seats in this election.
Yep.
Because they're brand new.
Yeah.
They're
I've
brand
seen
new.
material only like from these 4 parties of the Greens. I've seen very, very little from the PBC, but a little bit. I've seen something from the Communist Party. I've seen something from the Revolution Party. And I've seen something from there's one and something from the Canada Future Party. That's it.
Remember the
Out of all the
Rhinoceros
16
Party?
parties. Yes.
Is that still a
around.
thing?
Yep,
There's
still a thing.
Yeah. And there was a marijuana party, but I don't think there's a need for that anymore. They won. Or maybe they got really high and forgot.
I was gonna take
But I mean,
myself
really,
off the
what's
registration list, but then I got high.
well, I mean, the product is legal now, so what would be the point, right? It's like
I guess
I don't
greater funding for research or something, or
maybe, but Sunday is April 20th, which would be 420, which used to be a big. It's still a big festival in British Columbia, and it used to be a big thing on the Hill. But the last few years, since the legalization, I've noticed there's like nobody. Nobody. There might be a dozen people, and I'm like, well, that's no different than any other day of the week.
Yep.
Any other day of the week. 19 candidates.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I figured in this election. Thank you, Linda, for pointing that out. There are 19 candidates. They're just there to bring up important topics, not necessarily to get seats, and that makes perfect sense because they are a brand new party. This election was dropped on them quicker than I think they anticipated, as many other Canadians did. But the Canada Future Party might have a place because they're trying to establish themselves as effectively the progressive conservatives of the Joe Clark era, as I understand. Now, I could be wrong about, but that's what I've been led to believe, that is what their mandate is, to become a centrist progressive party that leans a little right, but red Tories, if you will, which used to be a big thing. You could consider Joe Clark to have been a red Tory, right? Because he believed in really progressive social programs. A UBI would be considered a red Tory, somebody who institutes a universal basic income. And it's only because they're trying to do something that actually benefits the vast majority of society. You know, I'm just unmuting you there. You were muted, sir.
Yeah, I did because I had to blow my nose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think what Joanna's saying here is interesting too. She's saying, I think Canada Future will be good to watch in the next election. Old school conservatives, from what I've read, they started out as a centrist conservatives, then officially became Canada Future. And I think that's correct. Like, they're not really going to make a splash or a dent in this election.
Yep.
They know that.
Yes. The M here says here that Dominic Carty is their leader, and Dominic Carty, I believe, was a member of the legislature in New Brunswick. But personal assessment, the party might need a new leader if it's going to make a serious jump.
Yeah. There's. I'm not gonna dump on the man, but there's some posts I've seen of his online that I kind of went, dude,
center, progressive conservative, really? You sure?
Yeah. Yeah. I've not met the man. I've not talked to him. I don't know very much about him, but some of the posts I've seen. Then again, now let's be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes posts online there's no context, there's no inflection, there's no vocal intonation.
Exactly.
So a lot gets lost in what I like to say textlation.
Yep.
A lot gets lost in textlation, but I've still read some questionable posts from him. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because you got to understand this party is trying to say, hey, the Conservative Party, that they're not conservatives, they're the Reform Party. They are too far right for the vast majority of conservatives in this country. And look what happened to Aaron O'Toole when he tried to bring them back closer to the center.
Yep.
They booted him.
Yep. Indeed.
And again, when Candice Bergen stood up in the House of Commons right after President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine gave his speech, every federal leader stood up and said, Canadians are here to support you, except for Candice Bergen, who said conservatives are here to support you. This group of people sees themselves separate from Canadians. Tell me I'm wrong. They always identify as conservatives first, Canadians last, if at all.
Yep. Indeed. All right.
And with that, I got to go.
All right.
Short, sweet, to the point, but I really do have to go. I have to get, I got to take care of something real quick and then head to my next meeting, trying to drum up some work. So we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping I can squeeze in my vote this afternoon. I'll let you know on Monday's show.
All right.
See ya. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for joining us. All right, kids and cubs, great. A little sidebar, but hey, that's why we do live, right? Things can happen. So back to what we were looking at here with regard to identity and sovereignty. When we left off, I was talking about Mr. Blanchet having a little bit of edge that seemed to be appearing there. And if you watch the French debate, as opposed to the English debate, in the French debate, the moderator was much more involved, much more engaged. The moderator did make sure that as many candidates as possible had equal time. I think Monsieur Blanchet, Monsieur Poilièvre, and Monsieur Carney all had about like 25 to 26 minutes or something like that near the end, and Jagmeet Singh had about 22. That was way more evenly distributed than the English debate, where I believe that Monsieur Blanchet and Monsieur Singh had at least close to 10 minutes fewer than the other two in terms of talking time. But during this debate also, Monsieur Blanchet, in terms of, as well as trying to be dominant in terms of, occupying a lot of space and with movement and, directing things. And of course, he's staged right in the middle there, which helps him with that. But sometimes even seeming to want to do the moderator's job for him along the way as well. So when you add all of that together, it seemed to be, for me, like I said, it was a bit of an off-putting performance. It gave me the impression of a guy that was trying to swing for the fences as much as possible in order to try to create a moment of some kind. And I'm not sure he particularly succeeded. It didn't really help him that Mark Carney in this debate was all the way off to the side. So when he was getting into it with the other two, Mark Carney could just stay quiet and say, okay, you guys just keep talking. And which kind of helped him, given that he doesn't necessarily have the skill level to be jumped in French to be able to just jump in and intervene. All right, so let's do this, and we'll continue.
Described healthcare as a right, and I agree with that. But you are talking about massive cuts to healthcare. You admitted it.
Mr. Singh, I let you speak earlier.
The long-time Liberal government House Leader, Karina Gold, agreed that there would be
Mr.
cuts.
Singh, cut his mic. I let you speak more earlier, but now we're nearing the end. We're talking about Quebec and French. Does Quebec have the right to defend French, even at the cost of using the notwithstanding clause upstream? Mr. Poilièvre.
Yes. Quebec must defend French. It's the common language of Quebec, and I will defend French. My father was a francophone from Saskatchewan. I lost my French a little bit when I was a teenager, but I married a Quebecer. Our children speak French, and I understand why French needs to be protected, and that is why I will continue to support laws and policies that allow Quebec and the federal government to protect French all across Canada.
Using the notwithstanding clause to protect something. You're against that, Mr. Carney?
Well, there is a general question here around the use of the notwithstanding clause in a preventative way. And it's not necessarily a question just for Quebec. It's been used in Quebec, but it could also apply in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And it has. And so the question is, do we have rights and freedoms here in Canada? Are we equal? And we need to consider the right balance. Certainly, but the use of the notwithstanding clause in a preventative way, that's a question for the Supreme Court.
Mr. Blanchet, in terms of the use of the notwithstanding clause, obviously you have no problem with that.
Jean Chrétien, on behalf of Pierre Trudeau, negotiated with the provinces, and it led to the notwithstanding clause, and this wasn't signed on by Quebec. It was tested. It's not the type of use that is in question, it's how it is used. The Supreme Court has already decided. Mr. Carney wants to turn to the Supreme Court to disagree with itself in the decision it made with Quebec.
There are
It's all funded with Quebec money.
Interveners from Quebec who have challenged this to the Supreme Court.
You are going to take Quebec taxpayer money to contest a Quebec bill that is under Quebec jurisdiction. That was adopted by the National Assembly of Quebec.
Mr. Singh, on this notwithstanding clause for French.
All right, so we will take a little stop there because there's a lot going on here. So the first thing when Monsieur Blanchet was trying to, identity and whatnot, he's talking a lot about Quebec businesses, aluminum and all that kind of stuff. He's made a lot of point to talk about aerospace throughout the campaign because aerospace is as integrated as the auto sector is with the United States. And his position is, if you're talking about automobiles, you should be talking about aerospace in the same breath and that type of stuff. Lumber. There's been tariffs for a while. Quebec has paid about $2 billion into tariffs and hasn't had the money returned yet. So he's got a lot of these grievances here with regard. They're talking right now specifically about use of the notwithstanding clause as it pertains to Bill 96, which is a language law here in Quebec, the new one. Pierre Poilièvre has no problem with the use of the notwithstanding clause in this particular case. He does seem to have an issue with it with Bill 21, though, however. And Monsieur Carney here in this case is explaining, and he does it very well in French. It rolls off fairly easily here, that his objection to using it is a technical one, using it as a preemptive thing. So we either have rights or we don't. Right? And if everybody starts using the notwithstanding clause, well, I'm just going to preempt this right, just preempt this right, just preempt this right, the Charter of Right just becomes a suggestion at this point, right? It has to be used in a, very, very carefully if we're going to do that. And it can't just be like this. I just want to do what I want, so I'm going to override your right type thing. So that's basically the bit here that's going on here. But it's Monsieur Blanchet is when we're talking about the use of this it's 96-21, and there is a long history of it in Quebec, using it for many different types of things. But the Quebec usage of it usually is with the goal, for example, to preserve or to promote French or something of the like. And people have deemed that somewhat acceptable. With Bill 21, there's some trouble because there you have citizens that don't have the access to certain jobs and the ability to live an authentic life at the same time. So now we're getting a little more, where there's a problem. So, for example, when you're thinking about Bill 101, if there has to be twice as many signs in one language or twice as big, it's not that the other language is not there, right? It's not only French and not another. So there's a reasonableness to that. But if it's you cannot hold this job if you wear that, well, that's the state telling you what you can and what you can't wear, right? And is denying you as much access to employment as other citizens have, but you get to pay the same taxes for the privilege. So at that point, that's an application of the notwithstanding clause in a preemptive manner that's really taking away rights completely, right? And that's a different, it's a bit of a different game here. So that's a bit of the struggle. You will notice that in order to get the emotional attack, Monsieur Blanchet keeps on speaking of that issue as if the Québécois are a monolith, right? How dare you use Quebec money to challenge this at the Supreme Court when it's a Quebec law that originated in the Quebec Parliament? And but the people that are bringing the challenge to the court is not us. They're citizens of Quebec. Right? So it may be a Quebec law, it may be Quebec everything, but it's also a Quebec court action. Right? Which Monsieur Blanchet wants you to conveniently forget in this case, and wants you to. So his goal is that it's so abhorrent that the federal government would intervene in the case once it gets to the Supreme Court in order to speak on behalf of the Charter. And he wants to spin that as an attack on all Québécois. So that's the goal here with this, the strategy with this type of discourse. Okay. And then, of course, you see Mr. Singh got muted because, of course, the question is identity and sovereignty, and he wanted to talk about healthcare. And, the guy said, well, listen, now, Mr. Singh, the context from that is that healthcare wasn't an explicit topic in either English or French, and he made a point of saying that he would talk about healthcare. And the moderator at the beginning here said, I know you want to speak about healthcare, so don't worry, we will make time for it. But this is Mr. Singh saying, I'm going to take an opportunity. Now, later on, he tries to frame it, and he might be doing that here in this response as well. I mean, healthcare is so intrinsic to Canadian identity, and we're talking about identity and sovereignty, so of course we've got to talk about healthcare, right? So let's just see Mr. Singh right here.
I believe in protecting the French language. During this debate, I have tried to bring up health a few times. Mr. Roy cut me off a number of times. Look at my time on the clock. Every time I tried to bring up healthcare, I was responding directly to something that Mr. Carney said, because health is something that is important for me. It is about identity. It's something I am very passionate about, and every time I tried to bring it up, Mr. Roy called me out and cut me off. That is not fair. For me, the question of healthcare is crucial. When I talk to people on the street and ask them what is important to them, they say universal public health care. People ought to know that the other leaders on this stage tonight would cut healthcare funding. And I think that's wrong.
No.
Not now, Mr. Blanchet.
No, neither
The two
Mr.
major leaders
Blanchet
have
nor
both
I have
said
said that.
this, and I need to tell people because it's important. This is what I believe in. This is what I believe in and what the NDP believes in.
That's not right to make allegations
Okay,
like that.
we talked about health earlier. I let you speak, but now we're moving on to another topic.
Yes, but now we need to bring it up in the context of
Okay.
identity. What is Canadian identity? Healthcare. We have to bring it up in this part of the debate. Canadian identity is about taking care of one another. We need our universal public healthcare system. It should be strengthened. It should be protected. We are in the midst of a healthcare crisis. It's supposed to be an open debate, so we should be able to talk about whatever topic comes up.
There isn't a lot of risk when it comes to the health of a language in
Let's
Quebec.
talk about language.
There's
Outside
healthcare
of
issues in
Quebec.
Quebec as well, and I am here to protect the healthcare system for everyone, including Quebecers.
Outside of Quebec, Mr. Singh and others, the weighting of francophones has gone from 6% in 71 to 3.5% in 2021. How will you reverse this trend? People are listening to you across Canada.
Well, first of all, we are going to increase the level of Francophone immigrants outside of Quebec. We'll increase that from 10 to 12%. Second, we will strengthen Radio-Canada and CBC with new governance structure and new money. Mr. Poilièvre wants to cut that. We are going to strengthen the telefilm industry and the Canadian Council for the Arts so that we can increase training.
All right, Mr. Poilièvre.
First of all, the Conservative Party supported the federal legislation to ensure that federally regulated workplaces in Quebec follow Bill 101. We also will increase funding to allow young people to take part in French immersion for Anglophones coming from outside Quebec, and that will enrich the French language. And third, we'll make sure Quebec has more control over immigrant selection so that they can better choose those who can be franchised and integrated into the labor market and Quebec culture. That's what we want to do to protect the French language.
Mr. Poilièvre, of course, your position on Radio-Canada and the CBC has created a lot of concerns. You've continued to say that you would protect Radio-Canada because it provides a service to Francophone minorities across the country, but you would abolish the CBC. How is such a thing possible?
Well, it is possible. We have news networks.
But they share the same buildings. You understand how difficult it would be.
I do understand the situation. I will protect Radio-Canada's services because there's already other French language news services. TVA is an example. So it is possible to have news service that's focused on French news services, and the CBC can just operate with its own revenues as an NGO,
what would the
as a
timeline be?
non-governmental organization. The principle is that the government should simply do what the market cannot do, and the market would never be able to provide exclusive French services to francophones all across Canada. So there is a role for the government to play in defending French news services. When I was a young person in Calgary, that was the only way for me to get news in French. So I would protect those services because there's a good reason to do that.
Let me translate that. Mr. Poilièvre wants to get rid of Radio-Canada and
No, that's not
CBC. And then he would write a check to other companies so that they can provide French language services. That's the wrong thing to do. We would protect Radio-Canada and CBC, especially in the context of a misinformation which is undermining our democracy. I am not a francophone, but I am a francophile. I love the French language. I have fallen in love with it. It enriches our country. Having Quebec benefits all of Canada. The forward-thinking ideas that have come out of Quebec, we need Quebec. We need the French language, and we will protect them.
For the first time since 2011, there are no women here as leaders.
Sorry, didn't notice that the mute was still on. So that's here the end of the section on culture and identity. Not that I'm trying not to show you what we're talking about women in leadership here, but the section that I wanted to bring to your attention specifically for this purpose was that one. And of course, we got into some discussion about the CBC, and you see that Mr. Singh here really delivered it back to Mr. Poilièvre, who has this fantasy idea that he can maintain a national network that would broadcast from coast to coast to coast for francophones, but still be able to do that at a cost that would be acceptable while the CBC goes off and then tries to be its own thing, right? Of course, him hoping that it dies, rather than just keeping them both together and using the fact that the CBC can make more money because there are more English Canadians, and that money can be invested into the French programming as well. So it doesn't make sense how it is that he's going to maintain Radio-Canada and all the infrastructure that's required for TV broadcasting, but then choose to only do it in one language. You've already paid for it all. Why wouldn't you do it in two? It's the same infrastructure. At this point, it becomes economies of scale, right? So yeah, it wasn't the best moment for him. And Jagmeet Singh had a chance to score there, particularly with his, I'm not a francophone, but I am a francophile, right? Somebody who loves the language. And it's clear because, the level, his ability in French does show a little more than, I'm learning French because I have to. He clearly does like the language and invested a lot of himself into learning it. And that's obvious. So that's what I got for you here from the French leaders debate. Like I said, it was more muted and calm for Pierre Poilièvre, trying to present the statesman type image. And Monsieur Blanchet, of course, this was the big show for him. So, he's throwing some haymakers and trying to make it rain for himself, but it didn't work as much. Mark Carney was pretty stable. Like I said, didn't have a chance to enter into the fray as much because didn't have the nimbleness of language to be able to cut in and intervene, especially when things are rapidly going back and forth. But that did not necessarily hurt him this time around, given that his skills in French aren't great. Any opportunity to, stand back and look statesmanlike while everybody else is fighting it out is not a bad look. And as you can see, time-wise, though, he did speak enough French and enough time and enough of the time to actually hold his own. And again, the general consensus from French speakers is that his French is clear. One of the reasons for that is that his French, the level of French, the vocabulary is more, slightly more European. And of course, when he's talking in banking, well, he's worked in international circles, so that's a lot of jargon that he happens to know in French already. So his language is slightly more elevated, even though it takes him a little more time to find the words. Okay, so that is what we have for the French language debate. Now, with the English language debate, there we go. And I will go to my timestamps. Now, on this one, I have a lot of stuff, and I don't know if I will show it all because a lot of it, it might be too long to go through it, but I just took a lot of notes there. I'm going to show you the first two times in the debate that Carney and Poilièvre get to go either one after another or somewhat side by side on a subject here. So this is to sort of set some tone and show how Poilièvre had a little bit of a shaky start. And what I mean a shaky start is like, it's not like terrible or he fell apart, but you would get the impression that on the first night he did okay, but he certainly didn't win anybody. And he, when we're talking about a knockout punch, he didn't even try to throw one at all in French. So in this case, the question was on the second night, would he still try to do the statesman thing in English and try to still make the appeal to try to get some moderate conservatives to try to come his way? Or would he go full sort of rally Poilièvre or somewhere in the middle of that to try to keep on throwing meat to the red meat to the base? My thinking is if his numbers were really good and showing that in the seat count he had a way to take it over, but he was just there, he would be presenting the softer side and speaking in the soothing voice and all that type of stuff. But given that the numbers are showing that the needle has hardly moved really since the election started, that maybe they have some polling information that indicates that if conservatives are convinced that Carney is going to win, it might be less motivation for them to actually show up. So in that case, he wants to keep them motivated, and therefore he would throw more red meat. So we were trying to figure out which Poilièvre would show up for the English language debate. So let's take a look and see what we get. And I'm stretching because there's a commercial playing. It happens. All right. So this will be a couple of minutes. And hopefully you will see a little bit of the shakiness that I was talking about here. Again, it's not big, but it's just the words aren't coming out as easily. Like Pierre, when he's got a script, he is a good orator in terms of getting the words out and being animated and having tone and inflection and all of that kind of stuff. And he can be a bit of a fast talker. So when he's tripping over his words or it's not getting out or he's gulping a lot, you know that there's something up. So I'm got the sense here that a lot is riding on it, and he really needs to make this work. So like this is your moment, pal. And maybe the moment was just a little too big or had a little bit too much nerves or adrenaline or something. But we'll take a look, and you tell me if you notice what it is that I see here. Right, I'm just going to make sure that the screen is right. It is not. See, I was going to start it. I'm still new here when it comes to production. Come on. Oh, yeah. Okay. I actually have to press the button to shade first for that to happen. Okay. This should work. See? I'm starting to get the hang of it. All right. Here we go.
Well, welcome. Be with you here tonight in Montreal for what I'm sure will be a memorable evening. Our first theme is tariffs and threats to Canada, and we will begin with a round of questions. You will each have a minute to answer, and then we'll go to open debate, and the first question goes to Mr. Carney. Okay, what is the starting point for negotiations, Mr. Carney, with the United States if, as you have stated, our relationship with the U.S. is over as we know it?
Well, first, Steve, may I thank you and also thank fellow leaders for their service to Canada, people at home for taking the time to watch. I just want to underscore the premise to your question, because I think the relationship that we've had with the United States, relationship over the course of almost the last 4 decades, which has been one of steady and increasing integration, has fundamentally changed because the president is looking to fundamentally restructure the trading system. So the starting point has to be one of strength. It has to show that we have control of our own economic destiny, has to have a clear plan here at home to build this economy, to diversify our trading partners with like-minded countries, and also has to have a position of strength in terms of our reaction to the U.S. unjustified tariffs. And that's why we have put in place counter tariffs that have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here at home.
Mr. Poilièvre, would you do anything differently?
Well, first of all, thank you, Steve, and thank you to our fellow contestants here today. It's an honor to be here. What would I do different? Well, I'll start by what I would do the same. I think we do need to counter the American tariffs with our own to deter this economic aggression. We must make clear that we will always be sovereign and independent. What would I be doing differently? Well, we need to be in a position of strength. The Liberal government has weakened our economy with anti-energy laws, red tape, and high taxes that have driven $500 billion out of our country into the United States and made us incapable of shipping our resources overseas. That weakness threatens our ability to stand up for ourselves. So what would I do? I would cut taxes, red tape, and approve our resource projects so that we can get our goods to market and bring home the jobs, so we stand up to President Trump from a position of strength.
Mr. Singh, you get the next question. Can we trust the United States to work with us on matters such as Arctic sovereignty?
Ah, darn. Everything keeps on. Every time I switch, thank you for letting me know I was muted. I am so sorry. Kids and Cubs, I need to check that mute button because sometimes when I switch back and forth to Windows, it just switches itself on automatically on its own. And it's not me. So I apologize. I have to train myself to watch for that. So what I was saying, sorry, when things went to mute, is that first of all, other apologies for having the small box down when Mr. Carney and most of Pierre was for most of Mr. Carney and Mr. Pierre's response here. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking. For most of Carney's and most of Pierre's response, not Mr. Pierre's response. As you will notice, there were 2 answers. And while the content of both answers were definitely probably quite in line with what the voters who are watching them and inclined to vote for them would be expecting, one of them had an answer that just seemed much more confident because it rolled off the tongue way easier and therefore was much more reassuring. So again, just wondering if Pierre had a bit of a case of nerves, small nerves or some jitters as the whole thing started. So that was the first intervention, the first sort of time they had a chance to speak, one after the other. And then there's another opportunity not too long later a couple of minutes later in the debate, because the first two rounds are sort of one question about a specific thing with a short answer, and they just go one after the other. So there's not a lot of time to go back and forth or for them to engage with each other at this point. Now, the second question is on supporting dollar for dollar tariffs, because as you know, that was our opening bid, right? We'll do dollar for dollar tariffs. And of course, some people started pointing out that, yeah, but you can only do that for so long, right? Because their economy is so much larger than ours. So the question here is, do you still support dollar for dollar tariffs? And again, now I'm going to make sure the window is right. And I see that the sound is up. So good.
Carney, with you, and then we go from there. Do you still support dollar for dollar tariffs, even if they ultimately threaten Canadian jobs and businesses?
No, and in fact, we've already moved off from dollar for dollar tariffs. We have to recognize, and I think we all do, the United States economy is more than 10 times the size of the Canadian economy. And the principle in terms of our counter tariffs is to have maximum impact in the United States, as I said a moment ago, minimum impact here. So we have to think about the impact on Canadian businesses. I'll give you one example, if I may. In the auto sector, the way we've designed those auto tariffs is that Canadian automakers, if they maintain production here, if they maintain their investments here, when I say Canadian automakers, I mean automakers that have jobs and plants and production in Canada, then they can have lower tariffs on what they ship to the United States. We create a huge incentive for them in order to do that. We also have carved out the Canadian auto parts sector. Last point, I know you're pressed for time, the Canadian auto parts sector, so that it can remain competitive with the United States. We're focused on maximizing Canadian jobs, maximizing the harm in the U.S., so that we get them where we need them.
Mr. Poilièvre, you want in, then Mr. Singh.
Well, Mr. Carney, you claim that you want our country to respond with strength, but after the last decade, half of which time you've been Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, our economy is weaker than ever before. It's been the worst growth in the G7. We've lost $500 billion of investment south of the border. You supported blocking pipelines in Canada that gave Donald Trump and the U.S. a near monopoly over our energy. And now you want to keep in place Bill C-69, the liberal no new development law that blocks us from shipping our resources overseas. How could you possibly think it's a good idea to give the Americans a continued monopoly on our energy projects when you have seen how much these liberal policies have weakened our country over the last decade?
Let Mr. Carney respond, and then Mr. Singh.
Sure. If I may, yes. So let's go to my record. My record is a month long as Prime Minister. And this goes to the heart of coming to the Americans with strength, but doing the right thing for Canada. Within the first week as Prime Minister, I sat down with all the premiers of the provinces and territories, as well as the leaders of the Indigenous peoples. Got an agreement with all the provinces and territories, doesn't happen very often, got an agreement for them to have one Canadian economy instead of 13, first point. Secondly, to commit the federal government to do its part by Canada Day, so free trade in Canada by Canada Day. Thirdly, the federal government to commit with respect to project reviews.
The question was about
Sorry,
pipelines.
I'm getting to it. Thirdly, one project, one review, and relying
That's not
on
possible
provincial.
under
Yes, it is
C-69.
possible under. It is possible on our system.
No,
it
it's
is
not.
the
It's
impact
banned
assessment.
under C-69.
It is agreed on under the impact assessment framework, and we have a cooperation agreement with British Columbia already. We're looking forward to them with the other provinces. We will move forward.
No,
I've got to let
jump
okay,
on this
Mr. Singh's turn.
All right. So in this case, right, we have Pierre Poilièvre, going at his famous line about C-69, and, that means no more pipelines will ever be built ever again. And, no mining projects will ever be approved ever again. That's going to keep everything in the ground. They're so terrible. And he says it's not possible. Well, that's not actually true. Max Fawcett, the other day, as he was watching the debate, posted, "I generally don't understand why Carney doesn't point out TMX, Coastal GasLink, and Cedar LNG. The first two are the first new pipelines to non-U.S. destinations in decades. That's TMX and Coastal GasLink. And Cedar was approved under C-69, which supposedly exists to block new energy products. There actually is one that has been approved under the No New Pipelines law. It's like Schrodinger's pipeline. Max Fawcett says, Cedar was a BC environmental approval that the feds rubber stamped. The length of the pipe involved is irrelevant to the regulatory issues we're discussing here. If you're building more LNG projects in BC, where do you imagine they'll be permitted? Right? So this here, there is now the point being made about the size of the pipeline is that it's a short 8 to 10 kilometer like this, but it doesn't matter. It was needed. It was proposed. The assessment was done. It was all done under C-69, and now it is going to exist. It was approved. So Pierre is just outright, we knew he was making it up, but there actually is now a case existing that shows that pipelines can actually get approved under C-69. So again, good back and forth. Once again, here you see Pierre definitely trying to be the attack dog over here. And then Mark Carney just, again, keep calm and Carney on was what he's doing here. And just saying, you know what? There we go. There we go. There we go. It's been done. And Kit Linda says, yeah, this is where Carney's not really a politician who he would bring up what's been done and then what he's planning. Yeah, what Mark Carney is doing is he's doing the education piece, right? Pierre Poilièvre got testy. It's like, dude, I'm getting there, right? There's this, there's this, there's this. Now that you know this, here's why this makes sense. Because Pierre didn't want him to get to the part where it makes sense, because that would blow up his argument. So that's a bit what happened here in this part. So again, this is their first two clashes in the first couple of minutes of the debate. And both times, even though, so Pierre's opening is shaky and his first attack on Carney doesn't land the way he had hoped it would. Now, even though he delivered his attack well, the people who are pro-conservative would see that, would cheer, because it didn't land and he didn't get the result that he wanted. Right? So that's a bit of an interesting dynamic here. Now, in this next section here, I want you to pay a bit of attention to Jagmeet Singh and then a little bit what Mark Carney does over here. So we're going to advance this a little bit to about, I think here, make sure I got the right timestamp for you, kids and cubs, so that I'm not showing anything superfluous. All right, so it should be right about here, just a little off. All right, there we go. That should work. Make sure I've got all the windows. All right, and here we go with this section.
A response from Mr. Carney.
Well, Mr. Carney refused to answer the question about pipelines. Just the other day, he said that he doesn't necessarily think we need to build pipelines. Let me tell you what that means. Right now, the Americans get 97% of our oil, 100% of our natural gas exports at big discounts. We have to send Canadian oil from Western Canada through the States just to get it back to Quebec because we don't have a pipeline. And now there's this law, Liberal Law C-69, which effectively bans pipelines. The 14 biggest energy and resource companies say it has to go if we're ever going to build another project. And I asked Mr. Carney why he would keep in place this anti-pipeline law that effectively empowers Donald Trump to have a total monopoly on our single biggest export. Why would you not repeal this Liberal law? Isn't it because you are exactly the same, in the same line as Justin Trudeau and the rest of the Liberal team that is now making up your cabinet?
Let's get a response.
Well, let me pick up a couple of points that have been made. The first thing I did as Prime Minister was to cut the carbon tax. That's the first thing. Second thing is made a commitment.
great idea.
Made a commitment that all proceeds from our tariffs will go to workers and those companies most affected. There were several points raised.
Nothing so far.
If I may, Mr. Steve, if I may address, I'm trying to do it quickly because several points raised. All proceeds go to workers and the firms most effective, and those proceeds are considerable. Third thing, I'm interested in solutions. I'm interested in getting energy infrastructure built. That means pipelines, that means carbon capture storage, that means electricity grids. And here's how you do it. And we've already moved in the first month. Cooperation agreements with the provinces. Guess what? We are a federation. You need to cooperate with Quebec. You need to cooperate with the provinces. You need to get First Nations and Indigenous people buy-in. You can do that through the one project, one review window that we put in place at that first ministers' meeting, as well as, if necessary, using emergency powers to fulfill the federal responsibility, but not the unique.
Mr. Poilièvre, you want to come back on that?
What you're saying, Mr. Carney, with respect, is a total contradiction. The No New Development Law, C-69, guarantees there will not be one-stop shop because it requires the Government of Canada to actually duplicate
So what Mr. Poilièvre is saying is that have no rules, have no regulation,
have one-stop shop.
Mr. Singh,
over any energy.
Mr. Singh, we just got to let him finish his sentence.
Pollute.
Let's just let him finish his sentence.
Well, that is not true. In fact, Mr. Singh, the reality is we should have strong rules enforced once. We shouldn't have multiple levels of referral that it takes now 17 years to get a major project approved in this country. That is why in the last 10 years we've had the worst economic growth in the entire G7. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a change, and the Conservative plan for a change will include repealing the anti-pipeline law so we can get our energy to markets other than the United States.
Mr. Singh, then Mr. Carney.
While these two compete about who's more pro-pipeline, I think what we need to do is, it's clear. The Liberals bought a pipeline. They built a pipeline. I don't know what Pierre is complaining about. That's what they did. I think what we need to do, if we're talking about energy in our country, we need to build an east-west grid. Let's use our power as a nation to build a national project that creates good jobs, that strengthens us for the future, where we connect the low-cost energy from jurisdictions and provinces across this beautiful land and have low-cost energy for businesses, for people, so we can build a stronger economy. That's the energy of the future that we need.
Mr. Carney.
3 quick points. First, the pipeline built, yes, TMX built. That's why oil exports up 50% over the course of the last few years. Secondly,
I don't think
Mr. Singh is absolutely right about the east-west grid. Grid interconnections, which is part of the energy corridor, huge opportunities for this country. We have to be able to do more than one thing. Third point, fundamental point. We can give ourselves far more than Donald Trump can ever take away. If we have one Canadian economy, not 13, and if we just look at that agreement we got with the provinces, look at what Ontario and Nova Scotia have just announced in terms of their steps towards this, this is within our grasp.
Monsieur Blanchet, what should we be prepared to concede in our negotiations with the United States?
I want to be back to something that Mr. Carney said. You can't do something and the opposite, and you can't fill people's mind with nonsense. Quebec has, by law, its own environmental review institution, and you cannot, through a federal decision, even through a Quebec government decision, go over the BAP, as we call it. If the BAP says no,
just say
it's no.
I know.
Good.
I know.
Let's
but this
keep that in mind.
This is the point. This is, if I may, this is the point. The federal government can do the following, which is to take the decision to abide by the decision of the Quebec BAP. That is within the federal government's power. That is known as cooperative federalism. That's what we need to do.
And do you understand one other point fast?
This is what we need. This is what we need to do in a crisis.
Bref, Moïse.
All right. So, lots of stuff happening here. Now, you will notice that first of all, for Mr. Carney, you will notice that in his first intervention, he starts laying out the plan. Then they're all talking. And then he comes back and he lays out another layer of the plan. So while they're all chirping and doing whatever they're done, they're positioning and whatnot, he just keeps on laying out the plan here. So everybody seems to not want to have multiple approval processes. That's quite fine. You got Mr. Blanchet here saying like this, but yes, but we have an institute and you're not going to supplant our institute. You don't have to supplant the institute. You could just take the advice of the institute and integrate it into the federal assessment, right? So Mr. Carney's going like, Mr. Carney's, I know, was absolutely perfect because tone and countertone. Mr. Blanchet's out there. It was like, you want to suppress us and oppress us and whatnot like this. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's like, I know. Because Mr. Carney has never once expressed that intent, right? The whole thing with necessary, what Mr. Poilièvre said, he didn't say pipelines were necessary. That's not what Mr. Carney said in the French debate. What he said is that he's open to pipelines. He will push for them like this, but the future plan may not necessarily have pipelines because if Indigenous people on their territory say no, it's no. If Quebec says no, it's no. But as an economist and banker and a planner and all that, he's going to try to make the best possible case to make it happen. But he is going to respect, right? So he has never once made given the impression that he's going to do this unilaterally and threateningly, right? He even made a point to say in one of his comments, right, when he was talking, the federal, this is something that the federal government can do for the federal responsibility, but not the unique responsibility. So he's always acknowledging it there. You will also know that Mr. Singh here, this is, you see what he did here to Mr. Poilièvre when Mr. Poilièvre got on a roll and Mr. Singh just cut him, right? Jagmeet Singh did this all night long. Anytime Pierre tried to get something started, he would come in there and just cut him off at the knees. And you saw a little moment there when Jagmeet Singh made that comment. Mr. Carney turned around and was sort of looking at him, and you saw that he had a little smile there. I don't know if I'd have to go back to see if they shared a smile, but Mr. Carney was like, "Oh, that was good." there, so they had a little moment there. So. Exactly, Kentavi. Mr. Carney wears velvet boxing gloves. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see that Kit Tim has joined us and has done democracy. So congratulations for going out to vote. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So, Kits and Cubs, again, lots of, stuff going on. This is a whole thing about pipelines. And Pierre is not particularly shining here. He's almost an afterthought in this section of the debate. I mean, again, the people that are listening to him for him are liking what they're hearing from him. But Mr. Carney keeps on like, yes, but here's the plan. Here's the plan, right? You have Pierre complaining that we are more dependent on pipelines than ever because of the Liberals. But during the 10 years of conservative government, because not 1 inch of pipeline towards Tidewater was built. Yes. And then we have the Liberals that got TMX for oil, right? And then we've got Northern Gateway for LNG, and then there's the Cedar thing undersea. So undersea C69, the alleged No Pipelines Act, but there is one. So the Liberals have done more concretely to get oil and gas to international markets, to diversify the markets. You hear Danielle Smith crowing about, oh my God, how much money they made. Well, yeah, that's because the federal government, the Liberals, got the TMX pipeline built and completed the Northern Gateway. Conservatives, you didn't build that. So you got Pierre Poilièvre trying to convince you, gaslight us, that the Liberals have made us more economically dependent, particularly on oil and gas. And you also have to remember the broader context that throughout the entire mandate, right, the Conservatives have been complaining about Keystone XL. I mean, I think Jason Kenney even handed over $1 billion or something and lost it in 3 days because Joe Biden decided it wasn't going to happen. Because, well, Keystone is another north-south pipeline. So the one, other than Energy East, which doesn't exist anymore because there's no plan on the table for it, right? So there is no pipeline to build. There's no plan. There's no project for Energy East. The one that they keep on saying, "Oh God, if only we had Keystone," is north-south, which would increase our dependence on the United States. So the conservatives are literally just all over the place on this one. But Mark Carney is laying out a plan. Let's see what comes next.
See, and then Mr. Poilièvre.
Yeah. The building of those pipelines will take at least 10 to 14 years. Mr. Trump will be 90 years old, not president no more, and somebody of course, less terrible will be there before you can even dream of having oil through this pipeline of yours.
We're less than a minute to go. Mr. Poilièvre, I promised you next.
Listen, after the last 10 years of Liberals blocking pipelines and killing jobs,
Sounds wild when you say that.
we actually need to get things done.
sense.
We need a change, and our conservative plan for change will repeal the No New Pipelines law. It will create a true one-stop shop, set up shovel-ready zones with pre-permitting so that we can approve LNG liquefaction export plants, mines, pipelines, nuclear plants, and also hydroelectric dams so that we can generate the power we need to be strong, self-reliant, and stand on our own 2 feet for change.
Last quick word to Mr. Carney.
Okay, quick word. Bringing it back to what we were talking about, which is tariffs, the threats to Canada, how to negotiate. We need these options. We need these options to build domestically, to build one Canadian economy. We need to act. We need to diversify our trade partners.
And that is our time in this segment. That is our time. Okay, you know my job tonight. I got to be the heavy guy here every now and then, making sure everybody comes to time. And I'm keeping an eye as well on making sure that everybody gets rough justice over here. That concludes our first section and our first debate. Up next, affordability and the cost of living.
All right. So, I don't know where I went to. There we go. There I am. Oh, wow. So, yeah, pretty good section there. Lots of back and forth. And then again, once again, you see Mr. Carney coming in one last time. And anyway, with all the debate, you see what's going on here is that Mr. Carney is laying out a plan. Mr. Poilièvre is really trying to create an impression that Liberals just want to kill everything. You heard Jagmeet Singh again going, "My God, it sounds wild when you say it that way," and just trying to kill all the pipelines. So just again taking a strip of Poilièvre there. Monsieur Blanchet trying to rationalize it away, saying, "Hey, well, like by the time you get the pipeline built, well, Mr. Trump will be gone. We'll have someone far way worse." I wish I could share your optimism about that, Mr. Blanchet. I wish I could share your optimism about that. That's not guaranteed. So yeah. Again, very meaty. And again, like I said, if you're watching it as a Pierre fan, you probably like that because he's, oh yeah, he just stuck it to Carney and all that kind of stuff. But if you're at home and you're looking for reassurance, you're looking like, how do we get out of this? Only one guy was laying out a plan systematically, telling you why we need it, what we'll do, building the case and delivering it. Right? So one is way more reassuring and looks like they know what they're talking about. Right? So I see that we also have Mr. Jim joining us. Hello, who also went out and did Democracy Today. Thank you so very much. Kit Elaine, thinking that PP is just looking for excuses to argue here. One stop equals bowling over what anyone wants. When Pierre says it, yes. Like this, one stop. When Mr. Carney's talking about the one window, he's trying to find a way for provinces and the territories, and the federal government to sort of agree on one sort of approval system. Now, that doesn't mean that the provinces can't take the lead on certain portions, but then the federal government, it meets a certain. They all agree on what standards it has to meet. The province can do the assessment, and then the federal government can say, yes, we consider that a good assessment. We're just moving forward with it. So there's got to be. Mr. Carney, I think, is really focused here on policy and process in a way to just simplify things, because if you want to attract investment, it would definitely be if you had you just apply at one spot, there's one window, and then everything that's federally, municipal, and provincially gets taken care of seamlessly on its own from one application. That would definitely be, in the business world, definitely much more attractive a way to approach it. All right, so that was the beginning part here. You will also notice that in the responses, Mr. Carney very often took things, a little element from another person's response and say, I agree with you that you're right on this. So while everybody else is being really, you know, very much look at me, right? And not always wanting to like nail someone to a wall, Mr. Carney is not afraid to say, you know what, that was a good point. You were right there. That's a good idea. We'll take that. You make it a good point here. So this, again, very, very good work here. In the next section here, um, I'm going to not show you all the clips because we're already going into a decent amount of time, and I do have a lot to show you here. But Blanchet initially tries to bait Mr. Carney here. And Monsieur Blanchet, again, as debate's going on, gets more and more desperate to try to create some moment that was equivalent to what happened with Sachi Curl, that he could go and like grab his pearls and go, oh my God, really? And then run to the province of Quebec and say, you know, how all of them just don't understand us and you really need him. But it's not working well for him because he's often attempting to do this in the questions when a new section starts, when you know each section starts with 2 rounds of very quick questions and it's tailored for each of them, where they get 35 to 45 seconds to respond. So when you try to challenge someone else in that one, there's no point because your time is over, and then the moderator asks the next person on the list and may not be the person who you're challenging the next question. So when Monsieur Blanchet does this and the question goes to another person, not the person he's trying to attack, the moment just dies. Right? And the moment's passed and then we move on. And when he sends it, when the person that he's attacking happens to be the next person, well, the moderator cuts off Monsieur Blanchet at the question or stops Monsieur Blanchet and intervenes and asks the question that he has for the other person. Then the other person just has to answer the next question. So it doesn't go anywhere. So in this whole section on affordability and whatnot, Monsieur Blanchet tries this 3 times like this, and all 3 times fails, either because of a time thing or because Monsieur Singh just pops up and decides that he's going to speak now, thus not allowing the confrontation or the moment to happen like this. Now, again, I don't know if Mr. Singh was trying to help Mr. Carney or if he's just had enough of Pierre and had enough of Blanchet, because both of them have just been terrible towards him over the past while. And he, like I said, he just has no F's to give, and it's payback time, darlings. So here's one, Singh versus Poilièvre here on housing. And in this section, you will see Blanchet's attempt fail for the second time here. So, so the first one I'm not going to show you, but I will go to his second attempt in this one. Oh my God, what happened? Oh, well, that would explain why that's wrong. Okay. There we go. So I am looking for this timestamp, 236:03. So, all right. Here it is. This works way better when I have Mr. Grizzly. Okay, and there's a little bit of a commercial here playing, so I will let that play out for you, and then I will, there you go, bring you to the spot. Okay, so we are ready to go with this section, Singh versus Poilièvre on housing, and Monsieur Blanchet's second attempt here to try to land something on Carney. I believe it is here. We'll meet with a rather dead end. All right. There we go. There's the window. Bring it forward. Nope, sorry, bring that one forward. And here we go.
Can you tell us what's the first thing you would do to make life more affordable for Canadians?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do, and I've laid out some of those things. I think fundamentally, I'm the only person on stage that not only fought for real relief for people in terms of affordability, I'm the only one that fought for pharmacare that actually makes life more affordable by giving people medication coverage, dental care that gives people more affordability by letting them access their services if you're a senior and a kid. I fought for childcare to make sure people could afford childcare. All measures that Mr. Poilièvre voted against, all measures that Mr. Blanchet voted against. So if you want someone that's going to fight for you in Ottawa to actually make life more affordable, you can't entrust all the power to Mr. Carney. He doesn't have a track record of making life more affordable for people, but we do. So vote for a New Democrat, and we'll continue this work to make life more affordable for you, while the Conservatives and the Bloc have voted against those measures to make life affordable, because that's not who they care about. New Democrats are in it for you.
Pierre Poilièvre.
The number one expense for families today is taxes, more than they spend on food, clothing, and shelter combined. This after 10 years of Liberal tax increases. We can't afford a fourth term of high Liberal taxes. And that's why Conservatives have a plan for change. And that plan includes
voted against every measure to help people out.
Cutting income taxes by 15% for the average worker and senior, saving a working couple up to $2,000, rewarding hard work again. Because hard work is actually being punished. Is actually being punished because of the very high taxes. Now, the Liberals promised 10 years ago they would lower them. They actually raised taxes on 9 out of 10 Canadians. We need a change in this country because your hard work should once again pay off with a powerful paycheck that buys you an affordable home
so you want to save
on
people
a safe
$2,000,
street, and that's what we will deliver.
You want to save people $2,000, but cut their dental care, which is thousands of dollars.
False.
Cut their child care, which is thousands of dollars. Cut pharmacare coverage, which is thousands of dollars.
False.
That's not a very good math deal right there. You're going to save people $2,000, but cost them tens of thousands of dollars. That's why you cannot afford Conservatives, and you certainly can't trust the Liberals on their own.
Mark Carney's turn.
You need New Democrats.
Mark Carney.
All right. So right there, this is a point that I've made a few times on the show, Kits and Cubs, because you can't just look at the individual promise, right? You got to look at both sides of the ledger. How much are they going to give you, but how much are they going to take away by canceling stuff? Mr. Singh makes the point very, very clearly here and keeps on just being a little thorn in Pierre's side. And you can see Pierre every now and then just like this, trying to go ahead. So Singh is needling him and is getting under his skin a little bit. And he is actually making an actual valid point. Let's carry on.
I'm going to reinforce that point, and then I'll respond to Mr. Blanchet. Childcare in this country, $3,000 to $10,000 a year for a family, depending on where you live.
Province, jurisdiction.
Depending on where you live, that's what's being saved there. $800 per trip to the dentist. We've expanded dental care to 8 million Canadians. 8 million Canadians.
Because New Democrats
Pharmacare. These are fundamental issues for affordability. We're talking about affordability and taking them off in order.
That's why you need New Democrats.
That's
Quebec,
not what I've said.
And in terms of
income taxes
working with Quebec,
for Canadians.
Yes, absolutely. Throughout the short time I've been Prime Minister, working directly with the Premier of Quebec, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, our Minister of Finance are from Quebec. Quebec and Quebec issues, whether it's
why haven't you answered
management,
Mr. Legault's letter? He asked 5 things in the letter. He reduced his expectations.
We're talking about...
And you did not even answer him. And tonight, you are so much in love with Quebec.
All right, Kits and Cubs. It's cutting into a commercial there. So you will notice here, right, that again, Monsieur Blanchet going fishing again, right? It's like, Monsieur Legault sent you a letter and you haven't answered it yet. And it's like, well, I mean, like, come on, guys. I mean, let's be serious here. He was running a full leadership campaign and then was prime minister for 9 days. Thank you very much. And then we were into a federal election campaign, that Monsieur Blanchet, by the way, wanted. Right? He was promising to take down the government at the first opportunity, just as were the NDP and the Conservatives. So again, many times you're seeing these people say, like this, well, we could have done something. Well, no, we couldn't have, because you wouldn't have allowed Parliament to operate. So in this case here, it didn't require legislation, but I mean, this guy's got a lot going on. He's going to answer the letter of the Premier of Quebec at some point. It's not the highest priority at the moment. He doesn't even know if he's going to be Prime Minister yet, but he did, right? He did meet with them. And remember, in that meeting, when they're talking about corridors and all that kind of stuff, even though Monsieur Blanchet is completely and totally opposed to pipelines and things of the like, Monsieur Legault did sign that letter, right? And remember, Monsieur Legault, Monsieur Blanchet, there's no love lost between them. Monsieur Legault thinks that there's no need for Monsieur Blanchet to represent the voice of Quebec, because there is already a sovereign government that does that, his. So this is an issue that Monsieur Blanchet is very, very much personally. He's probably more pro-environment than is Monsieur Legault here. But Monsieur, it is not in the House of Commons that Monsieur Blanchet is going to either make or break a pipeline happening. Right? It's going to be in the Assemblée Nationale. So he does have some limited power here in this discussion. So this attack of his doesn't really go anywhere here on that. All right. So Pierre here tries to get back on message, because his first attempt to go after Carney didn't work. And, well, let's just see what happens. Whoops. I have to make sure that there's some volume. Here we go.
Steve, the question that Canadians have to ask.
Why vote for Conservatives?
He's got the Mr. Singh, sorry, he has the floor. Come on.
The question you have to ask is, after a decade of Liberal promises, can you afford food? Is your housing more affordable than it used to be? What is your cost of living like compared to what it was a decade ago? And are you prepared to elect the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal staffers all over again for a fourth term? Mr. Carney, Justin Trudeau's staffers are actually here with you at this debate in Montreal, writing the talking points that you are regurgitating into the microphone. How can we possibly believe that you are any different than the previous 10 years of Liberal government?
25 seconds left in this segment for you to respond to that.
Look, I do my own talking points. Thank you very much. The biggest risk we have to affordability, the biggest risk we have to this economy is Donald Trump. So first and foremost, we've got to get that right. Secondly, we need to do it in a way that brings everyone along together. That means preserving pharmacare, dental care, child care, reinforcing health care, spending our
intrusion in Quebec jurisdiction over and again. I like if we're any better than we are. Is there one thing Canadians can do that Quebecers cannot do? You are doing intrusions in our jurisdiction with our money, pretending you are better, and most of the time you try to copy what we did with our own money against us. What's that as a policy? Don't you have your own things to care about?
That really is time for this segment. I wanted to be polite and let everybody finish their points,
but far beyond,
we got to move on.
I took the liberty.
Thank you.
There we go. And that's where Monsieur Blanchet officially taps out and loses. Right? He hasn't been given enough time. Well, you didn't give him enough time, so I take the liberty. And again, this attack, right? Like this, you're taking our money and then you're using it against us and coming into our, our areas of jurisdiction. Again, just going fishing, trying to bait Carney, but at the end of the block. Irony, pun not intended here. At the end of this block. So, Mr. Bacon, sorry, but we need to move on to the next block. So again, this attack that Monsieur Blanchet tried failed because he levied it at the wrong moment. And of course, Yes, Elaine. When Pierre tried to seize the moment again, and that little bit of nasty, right? All those people that write to those talking points that you regurgitate. You even heard other people on the stage go, "Ooh, yeah," like this. Even some people there thought it was a low blow. And then Mark Carney, I write my own lines. It's like, oh yes, yes, yes. Again, just one sentence. Cut the boy in short pants off right at the knees. Boom. Velvet glove. Floored him. However, it's Mark Carney did rather well that night. Now, the next section that they move on to has the stuff with crime now. On the night, for people who were watching the debate, if they like Pierre, this is the section they would have found that he did the best on. Said all the right things that they like to hear. Of course, for the rest of us, they're all the things that make us go, what the fuck? But again, for the people, right? Because clearly Pierre has given up on trying to win more people now, right? He's gone full red meat, right? He's just throwing red meat after red meat. He's debating to save the furniture here. It did not go well for him in the first 15 minutes. It didn't land, didn't go super well for him the next night. He's got less amount of time, and Carney is not screwing up in any way so far. So the window is getting smaller, so he is getting more desperate. And then the nasty Pierre, repeating those words that those people regurgitate for you, that it's not going to help him win with the women demographic, right? So he's not going it's not going well for him. So he gets to crime, and here twice Pierre Poilièvre speaks about people, but only in passing, in order to exploit their tragedy. The first was Indigenous people in his first answer right off the get-go, and then in his second answer, Muslims, again talking about the events at the Quebec Mosque. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip the first one, not because I have any disrespect for Indigenous people, but it's because he doesn't really talk about them. He just says, "Oh, like this terrible thing that happened to these people," and that's why. And then he goes into something that's like, and just forgets who he's talking about. Pretty much, they were only relevant in terms of having had a tragedy that he could base this on to exploit. But there's really nothing for them in the answer, and it's the same thing here with regard to Muslims. But in this particular case, this is why I'm bringing this one rather than the other one. There's something that he does here that's, to me, particularly odious, but you have to know it to know that it's been done here. So I will just find that section for you. That's right about here. Okay. I will, whoops, it's given me another commercial again every time, so I will let that play out there. So I think we've showed this on a
And what you
sorry, I think we showed this a bit, not this clip, but this similar idea from Pierre when he's talking about the notwithstanding clause. It says that it said something like, "I want to use the charter to protect the charter," or something like that. Um, and you're wondering, huh? Like, how can you, like, what is he talking about here? So we're going to start off with this section, and yeah, we'll just go and I'll point out the thing that he's doing here that's a bit odd, and I didn't notice it myself at all. It was somebody online with a legal background that pointed out the very clever bait and switch. All right, so here we go.
About is after the fact. Now, there's heinous things that happen, and there needs to be severe penalties put in place. But we also need to keep communities safe. And that's what my focus is. Well, how do we stop crime before it happens? Much of the violent crime that's committed is committed by illegal handguns and firearms that come across the border. Now, Mr. Poilièvre has admitted that as well, that it is illegal handguns and illegal weapons that are used in violent crime. So our plan is, let's stop those illegal weapons getting into our country in the first place. And the way we do that is by having stronger border security officers and having more people on the border. Mr. Pierre Poilièvre, when he was in power in the Conservatives, they cut the number of border officers. They reduced the number, weakening our borders.
Keeping an eye on time
can't
here.
trust them
Let's
to
get
do
back
these
to
type of
Mr.
things.
Poilièvre on the issue of whether, in using the notwithstanding clause under these circumstances, would be a kind of a slippery slope and encourage politicians to use it more.
No, we will use it to protect the charter rights of law-abiding Canadians. I'm interested in the rights of victims. Mr. Carney seems to be very interested in the rights of criminals. He says that it's dangerous for me to ensure that mass murderers stay behind bars for life. You know what's dangerous? Turning them loose on our streets. I don't think you appreciate, sir, the chaos that is unfolding in communities. In Toronto right now, the police have been forced to tell people to just let the thief steal the car. When they break into the house, just take the keys. Just let them take the keys so that you don't get hurt. People are living in terror in many of our communities precisely because of the catch and release bail law, C-75, which requires judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Every single member of your Liberal caucus and your Liberal cabinet voted in favor of this bill, and they're all determined to keep it in place despite constant promises to the contrary.
It seems that they're insisting on throwing in a commercial every 3 minutes, unfortunately. There, so sorry. There we go. And hold on, we'll just get right back to that section. My apologies for that.
Caucus and your Liberal cabinet voted in favor of this bill, and they are all determined to keep it in place despite constant promises to the contrary. Mr. Carney, Canadians deserve to live in peace and security. That is the right that I'm fighting for a change.
I'm fighting for that as well. And let me be specific about two things that have been raised. The first is with respect to these issues of car theft, home invasion, and I'll use the GTA area where there has been a sharp increase. How do you attack that? You attack it several ways. One, you increase the criminal penalties for that happening, particularly if you're part of a gang, particularly if you use a firearm.
And you will do that?
And we're doing so. We've committed to doing so. You put in place a reverse onus in terms of bail so that it has to be proven that there's not a risk, which we've also committed to. And then you go to what Mr. Singh was talking about, which is we have to reinforce our frontiers. That's why we're committing to an extra 1,000 Canada Border Service agents, an extra 1,000 RCMPs. That's why, as part of the broader fentanyl initiative, where we've added to the RCMP there, we've added drones, we're adding helicopters, we're adding surveillance, and we're going to the other end of the chain with respect to car theft, which is tightening security at the ports. This is what we need. In order to get results, you need to focus at both ends of the chains in federal.
Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about one of the issues that has come up is the idea of the public safety concerns around the overdose crisis and how this is devastating our communities. We're seeing so many lives being lost. In that, we know that one of the ways to address that is by investing in some of the solutions like mental health services and rehabilitation services. Services keep our communities safe, having access to those good services. Both Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilièvre are proposing cutting government spending and cutting those services. That's not going to make our communities safer. We need to see better investments in rehabilitation services, more investments in mental health. We need to respond to this serious crisis in our country with care and compassion. I met with Moms Stop the Harm, an organization of moms that have lost their children to this opioid overdose crisis. They've literally had their children have died because of this. And they're saying we need to do everything possible to save lives, to stop this death from happening. And I think we need to listen to those moms, and that's my commitment.
Ms. Blanchet.
Two things as rapidly as possible. First, we believe that we should act on crime gangs and organizations, defining them as we do for terrorist organization. We have to protect our kids from the violence of those gangs, from the drugs being sold by those gangs, from the guns and whatever else being stolen, sale, being by those gangs.
Sold?
And not sold, being, you purchase a thing and selling, sold,
Okay.
yeah, sold by those gangs. And we mostly have to protect our kids from being recruited by those gangs, becoming violent at 13 and 14 and 16 years old, because this is the real fear of parents like I am. This is a very dangerous situation. I want to come back to immigration because we said that we would come back to immigration. Do you remember the Century Initiative, a sad memory? Officially, they said that they had not considered Quebec difference. They had not considered Quebec language. They wanted Canada to be a 100 million people country by the end of the century. Mr. Barton told me himself that he had not even thought about the Quebec difference in that analysis. And one of his closest collaborators is now a close counselor to Mr. Carney, which seems to be part also of that kind of project or ideology. So it is impossible for Canada to have all those people come into Canada. It is impossible for Quebec to receive all those people. And in Quebec, we have the language and values and secularity of the state issue, which is very important. So I say, pause. Let's do things properly. Let's receive migrants in an orderly fashion and successfully as a measure of respect for them also.
Mr. Poilièvre, you wanted a word.
I speak to families all the time who are terrified by the scourge of drugs and illegal guns. And we know those guns are not Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle. So when the Liberals try to ban hunting rifles, they're really going after the wrong people. 90% of guns.
Well, let's talk about.
Clearly, they wanted to impose commercials on us. There's not much more of worth there in that section. The important part was the part right at the beginning, of course, when Mr. Poilièvre is speaking about the incident at the Quebec Mosque and about the shooting and how it's terrible that this happened to certain Muslims, like he cares about Muslims, and he of the barbaric cultural practices snitch line, and then citizenship ceremonies and all the things that he has, done here. But he's talking about using the charter to protect the charter. He mentioned specifically Section 7 in here. And it sounds, right, using Section 7 to protect the rights of the victim. And, okay. And when you're looking at the notwithstanding clause apparently can be used with regard to Section 7 constitutionally. The problem is that Section 7, in this case, its application is to defend the rights of the accused, not the rights of the victims or their families. The express purpose of Section 7 being used as a right in this particular case, when it comes to prosecution, is to protect the rights of the accused to ensure that they get a fair and speedy trial. He flipped that. So when he says, I'm going to use the charter to defend the charter, right? I'm going to use the charter to defend the rights of. He's picking, right? I'm choosing to defend the rights of the victims. You can't choose. You have to defend the rights of all citizens. You have to defend the rights of the victims with as much zeal and vigor as you defend the rights of the accused. And in Canada, incarcerated people still have rights, and you have to defend those as vigorously. That's the contract. So what Pierre is doing right now is telling you to your face that he's just not willing to accept the social contract. He's willing to pick winners and losers if there's a competition of rights. He's not willing to let the courts decide if there's an actual competing competition of rights, which rights take precedence over the other. He wants to be the person who unilaterally decides this. And he's going to take away the rights of some and wrap it up in a pretext of protecting the rights of others. So that would be sort of like saying, you know what? Hey, gay people, because I am giving you the right to marriage, right? I also need to take away something from someone else. It doesn't make sense. So yes, it's a definite misinterpretation of Section 7 of the Charter. There's a reason why these things have been to court already and have been deemed unconstitutional. People with minds far better than mine have thought about this. All right. Geez. So here, I see what. Okay, I see this. This is why I left it. This section. Okay. I was gonna move over it because we've heard a lot on this in particular. But let me take a look, because this is an attack from Pierre that Carney neutralizes. But I want to make sure here that no, you know what? There's nothing more there. That's fine. We get a question near the end of this section that is that's a bit revealing. The candidates are asked by the moderator, I believe it is, what do they believe is the biggest threat to national security, if I'm not mistaken. What's the biggest security threat to Canada? And it would be interesting. I want you to see what it is that they choose to answer in this particular instance. And again, you will notice where one person goes and where everybody else chooses to go with their answer. All right.
Let me get 10 seconds from each of you before this segment's out on what you perceive to be the biggest security threat to Canada right now. 10 seconds each. Mr. Poilièvre.
The physical security threat to our country is the rampant crime wave that is running out of control. After the last decade, we had a 116% increase in gun crime. We need to lock up the criminals.
I got to hold you to 10 seconds. Mr.
All right. Crime, the biggest security threat to Canada. Crime. And of course, the suggestion here is liberal crime, right? That's the biggest one. You can't think of anything else. Let's see what everybody else has.
Arnie?
Well, we're in a security section. I think we didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally. I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah.
Mr. Singh?
Biggest security threat, illegal guns and drugs coming across the border, and cuts to services that would make our public safety and security even worse.
Last word to Monsieur Blanchet.
The fact that neither Quebec or Canada is able to protect itself, and that we are still dependent and entirely dependent on Americans to protect us.
Okay, that is...
Boom. Boom. 3 good answers. And 1 bit of hyperpartisan framing. Again, for those who like Pierre, that answer will make them happy. But really, that's the biggest. We've got Trump, we've got China, we've got climate disasters, we've got. But his biggest threat is the wave of crime, the alleged wave of crime that Mr. Grizzly showed you on a recent show is not actually a wave at all. So yeah. You see what I mean now when I'm talking about looking at the debate through 3 different lenses? like what just constitutes a good debate, good response, good pairing, good answer, regardless of what you feel about them. And then, general, okay, I'm looking at 4 people. I'm open. What would a reasonable person think? And then if you were like really in the bag, a hyper partisan, right? If you're a hyper partisan, you're loving what Pierre's given you here. But you have to be blind if you're not noticing that he's getting smacked down at every turn as well. All right, keep going a little bit here. Talking about energy here a little bit. So Mark Carney, again, and you saw it on the crime, right? Answering and laying out a plan. So here we got Carney on energy, and then we see an Pierre take an opportunity to try to pander would probably be my best word for it. And then he pretty much just gets buried. So let's take a look at this.
Canada. So we have to make a decision, not just to develop it, but how do we develop it and who are our partners for it? Do we become more dependent on the United States, which is what they want? By the way, President Trump this week said he might put a tax on critical metals and minerals, just showing again
the job is not
if I may, and so the discussions
to negotiate.
If I may finish.
Let him finish.
Let me finish. So the opportunity includes in Europe and includes in Asia as our partners. Last point. In order to get it done, we'll put in place a first and last mile fund. So these projects are connected to road and rail so they can go quickly to market. And we will have all of the other fast tracking measures in place that I talked about earlier in terms of capital, timing, approvals, so that we can move quickly, we can be stronger at home, better.
Always with the
Mr. Singh.
approval of
I
Mr.
think
Singh has the floor.
we should absolutely take advantage of the fact that we've got incredible amounts of critical minerals in our country. And the way we do that is with any energy project or any project of this.
Oh my word.
Cultural competency is a
They
vital
are
skill.
just insistent here. Every couple of seconds now. It used to be I could go a certain number of minutes, but now it really just wants to insist to put one every couple of seconds. I am so sorry for this. I wish I could have a better feed for you. But hopefully I will, you know what? I will try and see if I can find a CPAC feed for this. That might actually be better, but my timestamps would be off. All right. So, not exactly. I backed it up a little bit. There might be a little repetition. I am, once again, so sorry for this, kids and cubs.
Absolutely take advantage of the fact that we've got incredible amounts of critical minerals in our country. And the way we do that is with any energy project or any project of this nature, make sure it's got the local community buy-in. It creates good jobs in communities. Make sure we are meeting all our environmental needs, and we work with Indigenous partnership.
Okay.
And so I absolutely agree with
Sorry, I will just go back and I will start to hopefully, it will pop up in the commercial at the exact same spot again.
Canada. So we have to make a decision, not just to develop it, but how do we develop it and who are our partners for it? Do we become more dependent on the United States, which is what they want? By the way, President Trump this week said he might put a tax on critical metals and minerals, just showing again
the job is not
if I may, and so the discussions
to negotiate.
So
if I may
Let's let him finish.
Let me finish. So the opportunity includes in Europe and includes in Asia as our partners. Last point. In order to get it done, we'll put in place a first and last mile fund. So these projects are connected to road and rail so they can go quickly to market. And we will have all of the other fast tracking measures in place that I talked about earlier in terms of capital, timing, approvals, so that we can move quickly, we can be stronger at home, better.
Always with the
Mr.
approval of
I
Mr.
think
Singh has the floor.
we should absolutely take advantage of the fact that we've got incredible amounts of critical minerals in our country. And the way we do that is with any energy project or any project of this nature, make sure it's got the local community buy-in. It creates good jobs in communities. Make sure we are meeting all our environmental needs, and we work with Indigenous partnership. And so I absolutely agree with that. I want to build on something Mr. Blanchet mentioned about the investments that this country has made. What I found very troubling is that the past number of years, the Liberal government record is one where we have spent the most subsidies compared to any other country in the G7 on subsidizing oil and gas. These are highly profitable companies.
You
I
voted
think that's
for
the
it.
wrong thing to do. We fought against it again and again.
No, you voted
and then
for
the
it
Liberals have
over
continued
and
to do
again.
it. And so my question really to Mr. Carney is, will you commit to ending oil and gas subsidies? We should be using that to invest in people, not giving it to highly profitable oil and gas companies.
Yeah, we talk.
I promised Mr. Poilièvre the next. We'll come back and get that question answered. Mr. Poilièvre.
Well, Mr. Carney, you point out that Donald Trump has a wrong-headed idea of putting a tax on our mines and our industry. And that is wrong. But so do you. You want to apply a massive industrial carbon tax on Canadian mines, Canadian steel mills, Canadian aluminum plants,
You want to let them just pollute as
Canadian
much as they
oil
want?
and gas. And your idea is to double the tax that Trump is applying by hitting them a second time. This will do nothing for the environment. It will actually ship our jobs south of the border,
So Mr. Poilièvre's
just
plan is let them
like
pollute as much as they
President
want.
Trump
Not a good plan.
wants. My plan is to bring that production home here to Canada. For example, I will give a tax credit to low-emitting Canadian industry like Quebec's aluminum, for example, or British Columbia's natural gas, so that we not only bring home the production, but we do it below global average levels of emissions, so that we actually help the environment while bringing
wants to
home
let
the
big
jobs
polluters
for our
pollute
people
We have to let him
at the
finish.
same time. That is a sensible, pragmatic approach that puts us in charge of our economic destiny so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength for a change.
Mr. Carney, we've got. Hang on a second. I want to give you a chance to speak to Mr. Singh's criticism about oil and gas subsidies and Mr. Poilièvre's criticism about the industrial carbon tax.
Okay, I'm going to make 3 points. I'll make 4 if you want me to respond to that, but I want to make 3. The first is that I answered this question last night, but I think the puck had already dropped in the Canadians game, so not everyone heard it. Yes, end to oil and gas subsidies.
That's why you need New Democrats.
Secondly, I would have done it independently. Secondly, recognizing that the biggest component of that was the cost of building Keystone. Keystone, which is the pipeline which has helped to increase oil and gas oil exports rather by 50% in this country, that is an asset of the people of Canada. We own it.
So just a little break there. He misspoke. He's talking about TMX, not Keystone here, but the principle applies.
And the question, what to do it. So it's not a subsidy that has disappeared, it's actually an asset of Canada. The third point, though, in terms of where the oil and gas industry, and particularly the oil industry, wants to and needs to go, which is to become low carbon in the production and transportation of oil. One of the big projects we need to move forward with is carbon capture and storage, the Pathways project, so that we have oil and gas that is competitive, not just today, 10 years from now and 20 years from now, as the world uses less. We want to have more market share. We need to do
Mr. Carney,
that. My government will move that.
But by definition, a subsidy isn't when we buy a pipeline. I'm talking about subsidies that go to oil and gas companies. Independent, separate from the country, oil and gas companies. That's what I'm talking about.
The figure you quoted last night included the cost of the pipeline.
All right. So again, kids and cubs, very lively section here. I see some people are doing a drinking game here. Like, time to sip again. Oh, love it, love it. So yeah, you see, again, Mr. Carney really just laying out the plan. And he's been doing that all night on every subject at one point, just lays out the plan. Now you will see what Pierre Poilièvre did. He's deliberately trying to conflate tariffs and taxes, right? Because we keep on saying, well, a tariff acts as a tax. Yes, it raises the cost, but tariffs and taxes are two separate things, right? And Pierre Poilièvre's framing wants you to believe that whatever Mr. Carney or the Liberals decide to do, if they were in the government or Parliament approves, with regard to industrial carbon tax, is going to be way more punishing to you than a random 25% tariff. It just doesn't make sense. Just like he wanted to convince you that if you just eliminated the carbon tax, well, all those food bank lines would stop. Because that was the difference between you being able to pay your rent and buy food. Well, carbon tax is no more as of April 1st, and I haven't seeing these articles about all these people that are just overjoyed because now they just have their quality of life has just jumped by like 15% all of a sudden. It's always a lie. It's always a misdirection. It's always a conflation. It's always a twisting or a torquing. And there was a little moment there where Monsieur Blanchet bopped Singh on the nose there with the oil and gas subsidies. Basically going, well, yeah, but you voted for it. Just, during the time that there was the supply and confidence agreement, of course. Slightly a little disingenuous, but accurate enough for it to come up in that type of debate. So, yeah. Again, the most important part here is the attempt from Mr. Carney to basically, again, reassure that there is a plan and to spot the particular gaslighting here from Pierre. The other bit of gaslighting that Pierre likes to do when he's talking about this, especially when he's talking about climate, is if only we had all that oil or that ability to transport oil and gas to other nations, then we could really help fight the climate because there's so few of us in Canada that if whatever we would do for ourselves wouldn't make a dent at all. The best way we can help is to help other nations reduce. Yeah, that is true. That is absolutely true. That's a good way we could be helpful. But what Pierre doesn't tell you, or what Pierre is doing that when he suggests that, is that we would get credit for the reductions that would be happening by selling people cleaner oil. No, the credit goes to the person who buys it. We get the credit at our end for producing it cleaner. They get the credit for making a financial decision to buy cleaner oil and use it instead, or cleaner energy and use it instead. So we don't get that credit. But Pierre wants to make everybody believe that if we did that, if we just replaced all the coal in China by Canadian LNG, well, we would more than meet our climate obligations. No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. That's a lie, because that's not how the accounting is done on the world scene. All right. So again, there's always a catch with regard to anything that Poilièvre says here. There's always a catch. There's always a glitch. There's often a portion that is true, but then it's wrapped in something or twisted or whatnot to make it illogical or nonsensical at that point. But yeah, it's not really on with regard to that. So the next section that I have for you, I had a little difficulty with timestamps here, so I'm hoping that these are the right ones for the next section. And again, another commercial. There's literally a commercial every 2 to 3 minutes. It's absolutely amazing here. All right. Let's see here. Mr. Carney, is this with regard to what I'm looking for? I'm so sorry. Again, this works much better with Mr. Grizzly here. I am going to play this and hope that this is the correct timestamp, because it wasn't on the last one. All right, here we go.
Approvals in order to take back energy security and energy sovereignty.
We can summarize that. He wants to conclude as much as
Mr.
possible.
Carney, hang on. Last word to Mr. Carney in this
Thank
segment, please.
Thank you very much. I was born in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, just north of what the oil sands became. When I was born and when I was growing up in Edmonton, early days, it was a fairy tale, quote unquote. But you know what happened? Canadian ingenuity, Canadian engineers, Canadian governments, both the federal government and the Alberta government got together and converted this.
The worst pollution in the world.
If I may.
The worst pollution
may I finish?
in the
May I
world.
finish?
10 more seconds to finish, please. Let him finish his point.
That's the opportunity we have. That's the opportunity we have in carbon capture. That's the opportunity we have in small modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver it.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us.
So you will notice here, kits and cubs, that in that bit here at the end, that Mr. Carney, again, where everybody's saying you can't be done, or can't, like, he's saying that it can be done here, I guess, and that we can do the clean power thing. So Mr. Carney, one of the things that he continues to do, he didn't do it so much in this debate, but what he's doing it on the campaign is, trying to give Canadians the confidence that even though the lift is heavy, it can actually be done. Right? And unfortunately, it does seem that, unfortunately, the timestamps that I have, something changed. There was something in the main video that got edited down or something, and everything is slightly off. So I am having all the trouble in the world finding the additional clips, unfortunately. So because of that, kits and cubs, and because we have been going for quite a while here, I might just opt to wrap this up, because it would just be very, very difficult for me to be able to get back on track here. I don't know.
Is able to.
I do not know why sources keep on re-editing the videos down different from when I watch them to change the timestamps, but CPAC does tend to do that enough. So yeah, sadly, I'm not able to bring you the other clips that I was hoping to bring you. And there was one of them that was particularly good in this section because Pierre went to an attack, and then Jagmeet Singh came in and cut Pierre off at the knees here. And the subject here was that Pierre was asked Mark Carney, just in passing, I guess, talking about steel and everything in cars, about whether or not Mr. Carney actually knew by how much the price of a car would go up with regard. And then I believe that the debate went back and forth in such a way that he never actually got an opportunity to actually answer it directly. But then Mr. Singh, during the exchange, was cut down Mr. Poilièvre in a really, really cool way. And I actually, to be honest, kits and cubs, I do not have it here on the feed because I lost the timestamps, but I do think, if I am not mistaken, that I do have it based on someone from YouTube that posted it up to be helpful. And hold on, I will just take a look. And if I have it, I will show it to you. Of course. Darn. I thought I had bookmarked it. It was a guy named David Bonway who had it. Anyway, not able to find it. So kits and cubs, there we go. What do you know? I know if I looked at it, looked for it long enough, that I would. This here is a very, very good moment. You might get a little laugh out of this, kits and cubs. So hold on. I'll put this up here. And oh, darn. Where's the tab? There we go. Let's see if we can enjoy this.
Mr. Carney didn't answer my question. I asked how much would an industrial carbon tax on Canadian steel add to the price of a car? He won't answer because he knows that it will be very expensive because there's lots of steel in cars. Now, while Mr. Carney has temporarily
But do you know the answer?
hid in the
You don't know the
carbon
answer
test
either.
is,
You're just
is
throwing out random
thousands of
questions.
dollars. Thousands of
You're just
dollars
making it up,
in
though. You don't
extra
know.
costs.
Actually, I do know the answer to that question. He's wrong.
When you add taxes to steel, you raise the price of everything that uses steel. When you add everything taxes
a straw man argument to say,
to
do you know the price?
when
You
you
don't know the
add
price.
when you
You don't know the
add
answer.
when you add the carbon tax onto the price of, for example, fertilizer, you increase the price of food.
So, Kits and Cups, that's the segment I wanted to show you, where Pierre tried, well, do you know how much it would ask? Like this, and then Mr. Singh turns around and says, you don't know the answer to that either. And Pierre did. Now, Mr. Carney was like sitting there, I actually do know the answer, but then again, the way that the debate came, nobody gave him a moment to say it. And this is where scrums after the debate would have been very useful, because were I a journalist, I would have made a note of that, and then I would have lined up to ask a question to Mr. Carney. I said, Mr. Carney, during the debate, you said that you knew how much it would raise. How much? And I would put him on the spot to see if he actually did know or whether or not he was just saying that. Right? But we had Rebel, so we can't have nice things. This is a moment where that would have been particularly helpful. But it was not to be. The last section of this particular debate came from Pierre making a very weak defense. A very, very weak defense. And then Carney came in with the plan again. And the thing here is that Mr. Poilièvre, when he wants to say that he cares about the environment, he starts talking about a whole bunch of other things like clean water and all that kind of stuff. And that's great, and having higher standards for this type of stuff. But once again, he conflates standards with reducing greenhouse gases. Right? You could have the cleanest water in the world. If you're not reducing your carbon intensity, you're still not going to be able to export that product without border tariffs. He'll talk about other things about the environment that he would like to do. Does not say, no, I'm not anti-environment. Stephen Harper did the same thing. He all talked about clean air, clean water, clean soil. But what about greenhouse gases? So always have to pay attention to that. The last part of the debate, the theme was leading in a crisis. And in that section, there was questions about Ukraine specifically. There was a whole bunch of stuff in terms of leadership, but it started up with support for Ukraine. And I might want to bring you a bit of that section here, because they're asked a question, and when answering the question, two of the leaders, I got the impression, I'm not sure, is this the same thing from Ukraine? Maybe not. I will not. No, exactly. Yes. Two people answer pretty directly. One has a lot to say, one has a little to say, and one just answers the question pretty much, and then moves to the other, moves to something else. But the two of the others, when they answer, I don't know if you can say that the answer is satisfactory, but they say something to handle the question, and they pivot away from it as fast as humanly possible, which I found to be a little disturbing. So we'll take a look at this here. It's called Leading in a Crisis, and hopefully we will get a little bit of additional clarity and insight. All right, I'm going to replace the sharing screen here. There we go. And
allows us to explore many different avenues here, so let's get to it. Mr. Carney, you get the first question this time. We haven't balanced a budget in this country in 17 years, and 10 of those years were under your party. You have pledged to get us to a balanced budget in 3 years. Question is, how?
So let me put this in the context of leading in a crisis, which is, in a crisis, you got to plan for the worst. Worst is that the U.S. actually does want to take us over. Secondly, you got to have a plan to build, and that'll include a fiscal plan, and I will get to that in a second. The third thing is you need to respond in a crisis with overwhelming force. You need to think big. You need to move rapidly. The things we've been discussing today are a subset of what we can and should do as a nation, and we can deliver. And government can play a role, but its role has to be catalytic. And so our approach is that we will slow the rate of spending. It's been growing at 9% a year, operational spending, program spending, away from transfers individual, 9% a year. We'll slow that to 2%. We will focus on a small amount of capital spending by the federal government in order to drive enormous private investment up to $500 billion by 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Ukraine surely constitutes a crisis. Leading in a time of crisis, Mr. Poilièvre, question for you. If the United States withholds support from Ukraine going forward, do you believe Canada should commit more to assist?
TD Easy Trade has partial shares now.
Oh my God.
Hey everybody, now I own part of this entertainment.
All right.
I believe we should continue to support Ukraine. Our party supported donating missiles that the Canadian military was decommissioning. We supported funds and other armaments to back the Ukrainians in the defense of their sovereignty. We also need to rebuild our own Canadian military because the Russians want to make incursions into our waters. We'll be buying 4 massive Arctic icebreakers. I'll be opening the first Arctic base since the Cold War in Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We're going to double the size of the Arctic Rangers and fill the vacancies in our Canadian armed forces. We need a change to rebuild our military, which has been so disintegrated under the cuts and the mismanagement of the last 10 years. But we can have a change because we have the best soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the world, and they will have full backing from my government if you give me the honor of becoming Prime Minister.
So he mentioned Ukraine just in passing and then went right away to shoring up the military. Pivoted away as fast as humanly possible from the subject. Right? Let's keep on.
I may come back to that one in the open forum because I'm not sure we got an answer about Ukraine on that one, but okay.
Oh, well,
going on. Monsieur Blanchet.
The answer was yes.
We'll get more details, perhaps, as we go forward. Monsieur Blanchet, given the U.S. trade war, should any talk of a referendum on Quebec independence be put on pause?
That one is easy. It will happen only after the negotiation is over, and that's a good thing. I want to say I support the idea. We must help Ukraine, but we also must help the civilians of Gaza, and we must destroy Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. You know what? I don't want to be the leader of Canada. You will understand that. I don't want to be Prime Minister. But I can offer to be a partner, a responsible partner, a collaborative partner. If Quebec is respected in its differences, in its aluminum industry and lumberwood industry and culture and French language and values of secularity of the state, which is the price to be paid in order to have real equality, then if we are respected, we will be a partner, and then even Canada will be stronger in its negotiation against Donald Trump. This is what I am offering. Respect us.
Mr. Singh, I watched last night's debate. You seemed very eager to talk about healthcare, so let's talk a little more healthcare right now. You have made many promises on healthcare. If a province says to you, we'll take your money for healthcare, but not your conditions on how to spend it, what do?
We've got to negotiate. We can't be giving away money without clear conditions. We're in a healthcare crisis right now, and a crisis that is hurting people across this country. People are waiting desperately in line in emergency rooms for hours and hours. Seniors are waiting for years and years to get the care that they need for surgeries that would remove pain or help them deal with mobility issues. We're in a serious crisis. Healthcare workers are burnt out. They are overstretched. And what we're seeing is more and more privatization, and that is hurting our public universal healthcare system. So we've got to fight back against it. We cannot allow our public money to go to a for-profit private clinic lining the pockets of a rich CEO or investors instead of going towards care. We need to make sure that we are investing in solutions where care gets to people, not profiting those at the very top. And so that's my commitment. I'm going to fight to make sure we defend our healthcare against the threats of Americanization and privatization.
Okay, we now go to...
All right. So little mention about this. Mr. Singh did something there that I wanted to bring to your attention. In this answer, right, we heard Jagmeet Singh tell us what's wrong, right? Told us what we need to do, told us what we can't do. Can't afford to do this, can't afford to do that, we shouldn't do this, but offered no way to get there. No in-depth answer on why there should or should not be conditions. What type of conditions? How would he go about imposing them? What's wrong? What we can't do and what we need to do. This is healthcare. This is his topic. This is the one he wanted to talk about. I don't know. So, again, take that for what you will. Now we're going to get back a little bit to Ukraine because Mr. Pakin is not going to drop this one.
Open forum debate, and perhaps, Mr. Poilièvre, you get the first word here. This might be a good time to put a little more flesh on the bone of what you think Canada could do for Ukraine if the U.S. backs out.
Yes, and my answer is that we should continue to support Ukraine. We don't need to follow the Americans in everything they do. When they're wrong, then we will stand on our own and with other allies. And with respect to Ukraine, that of course includes support with intelligence, equipment, armaments, but it also includes defunding Putin. Right now, Vladimir Putin has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects. I would rapidly approve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually ship Canadian natural gas over to Europe, break European dependence on Putin, defund the war, and turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
Mr. Carney, you wanted to add.
Okay. This is where you see that Pierre knows that he's losing. He's reverting back to the rhetorical safety blanket here. Right? This is not a substantive answer. The best way to help Ukraine is once again oil. Getting our oil to market. Again, with the amount of time for the approvals and to get built and then to sell the contracts and whatnot, if the people in Ukraine had to wait that long, this is not a credible response. All right. Keep going.
Well, I want to go to the situation in Ukraine because it's very important. We've been a steadfast, Canada has been a steadfast ally, and Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting them in other ways. In my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine as the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine, number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade. Mr. Poilièvre voted against free trade agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilièvre wants to cut foreign aid, including for Ukraine, or not. He didn't mention support for aid for Ukraine. We have to stand by them. We have to be there, and this government has been.
Mr. Singh.
New Democrats absolutely support standing with Ukraine and will continue to do that. But I appreciate the opportunity in talking about leadership in crisis, talk about many of the crises that we're up against. And one of the crises we're up against in our country, with the threat of Donald Trump, with the threat of the trade war, and with the privatization and Americanization of our healthcare system is the healthcare system. And what we have learned today, Mr. Carney mentioned slowing operation spending. That's a cut to services. He said his plan. He has a plan to balance the operating budget within 3 years. That's going to require massive cuts to spending. We calculated that at $43 billion in cuts. In fact, Rosemary Barton, when he was on the show on February 16th, he said he would cut spending. He said it would be in operations. He defined it as transfers in health. And finally, longtime Liberal and former House Leader Karina Gould said that Mr. Carney's plans would mean massive cuts. That's the only way to achieve it. So, Mr. Carney, do you think it is leadership to cut health care at a time when it is in crisis? I think it is wrong. We can't do that.
We will not cut transfers for healthcare. We will not cut healthcare spending, full stop.
But
we'll
Mr.
have
Carney,
a detail, if I may.
Who do we believe, Mr. Carney today, or the one he spoke on Rosemary Barton's show on February 16th?
I did not.
The one that repeated again that he would cut spending?
If I may.
Who do we believe?
If I may. Consistently said, we'll preserve all transfers to the provinces, including the increases. We will preserve all the transfers to individuals, I won't detail them all, but there. So we're looking at addressing an operational spend, which is about $150 billion. We will address that. We will make it more efficient, and we will do it in 3 years, and we'll balance that budget.
Monsieur Blanchet.
All right. So I wanted to show that part because I wanted to bring a certain thing to your attention, and Mr. Jim did spot it earlier on in the conversation. So hopefully I can find his little tweet, not his tweet. There we go. His comment, and put it up there. Slowing the growth of the operating budget, not cutting the operating budget. Exactly. Mr. Singh here does, the way he achieved this number is that Mr. Carney said in a previous response that operational growth was growing at 9% per year. He wants to bring that down to 2%. So what Mr. Singh is doing is he's taking the difference between 9 and 2%, and then what that amount is and multiplying it by the number of years it would apply to budget and say, well, that will be $43 billion. That is cutting. It is not. It's not a cut. Money that keeps on growing at 2% rather than 9% is not a cut. It's still growing. It's not growing as fast as it was before. It is a reduction in the pace of growth, but it is not a cut. Now, in real dollars, if inflation is higher than 2%, because if there's an actual 2% escalator or something, on how much they're going to spend, well, then yes, what you have would buy less. And it would sort of act as a cut. You would have less value for money, but there would still be no cut in the budget. So Mark Carney has never, ever, ever, ever proposed a cut. He's proposed reducing the pace of annual growth from 9% to 2%. So Mr. Singh is being a tad disingenuous with the argumentation on this one. You will also notice, unfortunately, that on Ukraine, and this surprised me, but Mr. Singh pivoted away from the subject pretty quickly. In the first response is like, of course, we support Ukraine and all of that, and then moved on. And then in this particular exchange, when they were talking about it, and Pierre went first, and then Mark Carney went next, and then Jagmeet Singh had a chance to add something. He didn't add that. He just went directly to healthcare. So wouldn't engage with the topic, and when that happens, then the topic gets broken. So then Monsieur Blanchet just went on and talked about other things. So he started to go after Mr. Carney in English like he did in French at the beginning about his experience. Monsieur Blanchet likes to make the point, he's trying to make the point that Mr. Carney has some type of arrogance going on because he's got all this experience in the other world, right? Economic world and all that kind of stuff, which Monsieur Blanchet dismissed and said he hadn't seen any proof of that competence and prowess yet. Of course, Mr. Carney was Prime Minister for 9 days, so I'm not exactly sure how much demonstration Monsieur Blanchet was expecting to see in those 9 days, especially with Parliament not operating. But that's his thing. Today, in the English debate, he modified it a bit, going less harsh still saying that, you didn't have, we don't know this. I'm not saying that you're not capable of it, but we just haven't seen it yet. So he sort of softened it a little bit. But he's going after Mr. Carney on this, suggesting that because he has way more political experience, right? That his experience would somehow trump Mr. Carney's. Or that Mr. Carney would be so deficient in having the political skills to be able to navigate, even though he has the economic skills, that he is just doomed to fail if he's not willing, I guess, to follow Monsieur Blanchet's lead on the politics of it. So I'm going to present the clip of Monsieur Blanchet. And the reason I want to present it to you is because even though he softened on the experience, he went really harsh on something else. And this is where for sure here that Monsieur Blanchet can no longer, he just doesn't have it here. He just doesn't have it. He's getting very, very frustrated, and he's allowing himself to be a little mean. All right, so let's go for it here.
Be stronger and facing new threats. I believe that 2% won't be enough. I'm not more in favor of war.
Whoops, sorry. Ooh, it was on a double speed. Sorry. Don't know exactly how that happened, but there we go. Let's hope this one works here.
Ukraine is the U.S. step back, so led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade. Mr. Poilièvre voted against free trade agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilièvre wants to cut foreign aid, including for Ukraine, or not. He didn't mention support for aid for Ukraine. We have to stand by.
Oops, I think I backed it up a little too much there, kids and cubs. I am so sorry. I will try that again. Again, this is where you see the value of definitely having a Mr. Grizzly on board. Oh man, I tell you, not this solo. This is very difficult to do. All right, let's try this one more time.
Monsieur Blanchet.
I am 6 minutes behind Mr. Carney, so I will speak a little bit longer. First, I will support any initiative which will bring Canada aligned with Europe and NATO in order to be stronger and facing new threats. Good. I believe that 2% won't be enough. I'm not more in favor of war than anybody else, but we have responsibilities, and our main ally is removing himself from the stage. So we have to step up. We have to do our part. I want to go somewhere else entirely, however. I want to ask Mr. Carney, if we're speaking about leadership here, if Quebec and Canada were to say, you are not being given a majority government, there will be more conservatives than you would like, maybe more New Democrats than you would like, and more people from the Bloc than you would like. Will you accept, because you don't seem to be very eager about that, to deal with people which basically are more experienced than you are, as legitimate as you are, and would be more representative altogether than you would be being alone in your little kingdom? And I want also to propose to you all guys that 1 week after the election, we all meet, whatever the result, and we start dealing with this crisis together, because this is what people, either they are from Alberta or Quebec or wherever, this is what people expect from us.
Mr. Carney, is that something you could get behind?
I look forward to meeting with everyone. You're welcome to come, Steve, if you'd like. Week after twice, but also, but in all seriousness,
that's not very respectful.
No, but I'll
that's
come.
Not very
but I'm
respectful.
coming. On peut jaser un peu. Okay, I come to the core.
On jase.
Yeah, okay. I'll come to the core. Look, in a crisis, yes, you need a team. and you need to bring the country along with you. So what I did in the first week was to bring the premiers together, meet with all the Indigenous leaders, and move forward in that context. Now, the question is who's going to lead out of this? Whoever leads out of this, if I may, Mr. Blanchet, merci, thank you. Whoever's going to lead out of this is going to need to work with all the provinces, work with Labour, work with Indigenous leaders, work with all Canadians to bring them forward in a united front. And if I make this last point, one of the things that has happened, which is a credit to those people at home, is that Canadians are coming together. And it's our responsibility to meet the strength of Canadian unity.
Still lagging. I have one small point to make.
Yep.
You will be elected, if you are elected, in the parliament where there are other leaders. I don't know if he called you, or Mr. Poilièvre, I don't know if he called you, but before yesterday, you have not spoken to me once, even if I proposed it so many times. But you say, I speak to provinces' leaders. You're not elected in provinces. You are in the parliament where people are to make decisions which might not always suit you. But this is democracy, which you don't know too much about.
I'm going to jump in here because...
All right. So once again, you see Monsieur Blanchet's attempt to make an attack fail because he's doing it in another section. And, they have to move on. But here you go. Monsieur Blanchet is what I was saying, that he was going fishing. You saw him twice in this segment go fishing, right? You don't have the experience as a politician. You don't look like somebody that likes to take notes from people who have more experience than you. You're in your little kingdom over there. Fishing, bait, trying to get under his skin. Right? Not getting what he wants. And then Mr. Carney makes a joke. Well, Steve, you could come. Well, that's very disrespectful. The whole kingdom, you're not willing to take experience from other people. I don't get the sense your experience isn't really all that. That's not disrespectful. So Blanchet is single-mindedly looking for somebody to say something that he can manufacture to take offense with. And time's running out. They're getting near the end of the debate. So he's getting wilder and wilder. It's not a good look. It is not a good look. It's sad that these particular little moments are happening because they're just really not necessary. And Monsieur Blanchet does not need them. Doesn't need them at all. All right. So that's mainly the main stuff. There's a couple of other things in terms of closing arguments. But you will also notice here that when Blanchet can no longer control his frustration, right, and starts going off the rails, did you see how deftly Carney diffused it? Clearly it was a joke. It wasn't good nature, but when he got that's disrespectful, he just turned around and looked at him. And in French, Monsieur Blanchet, on se parle. Right? Because Monsieur Blanchet came to the second time. Did he call you? Did he call you? Did he call you? So this is starting to look a lot like personal grievance now. Again, he's prime minister for 9 days. I don't think a call to the leader of the Bloc Québecois was his first priority. Right? 9 days and then going into a federal election. So, Monsieur Carney diffuses it by talking to him in French. No, we'll talk. And then you'll see later on, Monsieur Blanchet, if I may, and then he goes, you may, and he goes, merci. He says it in French. Right? So he took a moment that could be potentially disastrous. And saved it. It actually looked like someone who's reasonable that would like to talk. So, yeah. A pretty good segment here. And then, of course, eventually there's a section on Gaza that comes along afterwards where here you see Jagmeet Singh really trying to sprint to the finish in terms of, like, you ever watch those shows where, you've got like 5 minutes and you're in a grocery store and you could take and put as much as you can in your cart. Well, Jagmeet Singh's doing this at the end with the sniping and whatnot. And there comes a moment with Mark Carney that he's trying to constantly interrupt him. And what worked very well with him interrupting Pierre and interrupting Blanchet doesn't work so much with Carney, because you've seen this many times where there was one time earlier we were showing a segment where like 3 of them were ganging up on him, and Carney was just keeping on with his point and not losing his thought, and sometimes stopping a little bit when it got a little too cacophonous and then just continuing. But he never deviated from his point and never lost his train of thought. Right? So while all of them were sniping, he was laying out a plan. So overall, that was the most solid part of the debate. I'm letting the thing move forward here on us on the screen behind, so I can get to the closing arguments. But with regard to the discussion on Gaza, it comes down to a lot of people making the bare minimum boilerplate statement that they can safely make, right? With the exception of Pierre Poilièvre, who's really full in the bag for Israel and has been for quite a long time. And in this exchange, actually, Mr. Singh really gets a good piece and calls Pierre Poilièvre out on it. Absolutely. Basically saying that Pierre Poilièvre has pretty much been disgusting towards the Palestinians and towards anybody who supports that cause. Because, again, the only time he can mention Muslims in any type of a sympathetic light is when he talks about them having been shot at a mosque. But other than that, he has nothing kind to say about them at all, in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, Mr. Singh definitely called out Monsieur Poilièvre on that one. And you could tell in the exchange that he felt it. He was definitely saying it with his chest. Right? So, and hopefully if I'm able to find that moment at some point, I won't. I will show it for you. Now, later on, what happens is there came a round that I mentioned on the show where the leaders got to ask of each other a question. And everybody chose to ask the question to Mr. Carney, which is not a smart move, because by doing that, you are conceding that he is the person that needs to be taken down, and you're going to give him a lot of time. Now, it is risky in that we had asked more questions more often, so therefore more opportunities to mess up. But yeah, it didn't happen. Jagmeet Singh asked him about Brookfield, and he answered it while having certain elements of the answer that he probably should have had from day one, but he didn't. But this one was a bit better, and owned some stuff with it too when he was talking about his time at Brookfield, that he enjoyed it, and not so much that he enjoyed it, but that he did he did the job according as best as he could, as he was expected as the chair or vice chair to do the job, right? And sort of suggesting that that's the same dedication that he will bring to this particular task, making the point, of course, that he does have not only private sector service, but public sector service as well. Pardon me, I have to cough. Oh, so sorry, kids and cubs. So hopefully here I will be able to get to the closing statements and bring those to you. And again, not all of them particularly were winners, I have to say. Uh, at the end, of course, as we mentioned on the show, Mr. Carney asked Pierre Poilièvre about his security clearance. And the answer is actually not worth showing because Mr. Poilièvre just basically answers the BS that he had it before, and then goes on and attacking Carney on stuff like, for example, having gotten a loan during the time, a loan from China at the time for Brookfield. So there wasn't really anything there, and everybody's saying again, like, well, why did Carney ask that question? Because Pierre was prepared for it, and he nailed it. Well, he did nail it. He just confidently delivered the same BS answer that he always delivers, and then very quickly pivoted to try to counterattack. So, yeah, it wasn't particularly impressive. Like, I mean, how would I say? It's very good that Carney did ask him the question point blank, but clearly everybody expected that would be what was asked. Before the debate ended, they were also asked a question: "What is your biggest regret of this campaign?" Monsieur Blanchet actually gave a substantive answer. Mr. Singh then answered, because the campaign was so short, not enough time to actually go out and meet people. That created the permission slip for pretty much everybody else to say the same thing. And they did. So Monsieur Poilièvre tried the same thing, and Mr. Carney did. Well, Monsieur Poilièvre's attempt to answer the question got some positive press because he got emotional. Now, a lot of people thought he was insincere. I don't have the feeling here that he was insincere about this. And the reason I say this is because in anything that I've read about Monsieur Poilièvre, a lot of people seem to say that, you know what? One-on-one, he's really great. And then you put him in this context and he becomes this. So somewhere deep inside, there is actually a real person in there, not this performative guy. All right. So we'll let this moment here show.
A big country, and it is a short period of time.
Mr. Poilièvre, last word to you.
I actually agree with these two gentlemen. I had a rule that at all my rallies, even when they're really big, I would stand in front of a flag and greet every single person and hear their stories and learn their struggles. And that was always touching to me, that they would put their faith in me or in any of us.
Yeah.
But we've been in such a rush because we have to get off to the next event, so we haven't been able to stop and do that. And I want you to know out there, I haven't forgot about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poilièvre. It is time now for closing statements, and prior to the debate, you drew lots as to which order we would go in, and Mr. Singh, you get the...
So just before we go into closing statements, like I said, I actually have a feeling that was genuine emotion. I'm not willing to be cynical on that one. I think if there was any cynicism in me, it might be because he's realizing at this moment, just before closing statements, that he did not do what it is that he needed to do in order to win this debate and maybe get to the election result that he desired. And there might be a little bit of that emotion coming up as well. But yeah, this persona that he adopted for that last answer, which may actually be the real him, if he had allowed that to be his persona for his entire political career, his political career would have been very, very, very different. He actually might be on his way to being prime minister right now. But that's not the choice he made. Authenticity matters. Authenticity matters. All right. Closing statements, kids and cubs. Let's bring it home. as they say.
First word on a closing statement.
Certainly, thank you. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to build this country that we love. Universal health care and pensions, because you voted for us. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to fight to bring in dental care, pharmacare, and childcare. Because you voted for us, because you supported us. You have the power with your vote to send more New Democrats to Ottawa, to continue that fight, to make sure that no government cuts the things that we hold dear, like our health care, to ensure that we can do everything possible to make life more affordable by making it more affordable to buy your groceries and to get a home. I'm asking for your support in this election so that I can continue to fight to defend the things that make Canada, Canada, the things that we hold dear, the things that make us proud to be Canadian.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carty.
We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, the trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the U.S. can own us. They want our land, they want our resources, they want our water, they want our country. We're all going to stand up against Donald Trump. I'm ready. I've managed crises over the years. I've built strong economies. We will fight back with counter tariffs. We will protect our workers and those businesses, and we will build the strongest economy. We will build Canada strong. I'm asking for your support, the honor of doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Monsieur Blanchet.
For 260 years and a little bit more, les Français, devenus des Canadiens, devenus des Canadiens français, devenus des Québécois, you have tried to have them become Canadians like all Canadians. But to no avail, we are different. So let's be economic partners. Let's have a voice chosen by and for Quebecers, an ally for Canadians as equals in front of Mr. Trump.
Monsieur Poilièvre.
Only in Canada could someone start where I began and get to this stage. I was born to a single mother and adopted by school teachers who raised me to believe in the incredible Canadian promise that anyone who worked hard could do anything. That promise feels broken today. Many of you worried about paying your bills, feeding your families, or ever even owning a home. You're worried your kids are in danger. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. With change, we can restore the Canadian promise so that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under a proud flag. We can do it with hope for a change.
Gentlemen, thank you for a very spirited debate tonight. 2 quick points before we go. Number one of you celebrated your 60th birthday yesterday on this stage. Yves-François Blanchet, bon anniversaire.
Bon anniversaire.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Secondly, you'll notice we didn't have to change the time of this debate because the Leafs already clinched the Atlantic Division title, and therefore we didn't need to move the debate to accommodate a hockey game.
Shade.
I'm getting back at my colleague who was in this position last night, and okay, go Habs go, that's fine. With that, we're done. Thank you, leaders, for being here tonight. We are just 11 days from Election Day, April 28th, but there are many ways that you can cast your ballot starting tomorrow at advanced polls. If you intend to vote by mail, that deadline is April 22nd. Make sure to check your voter card for details or contact Elections Canada. This is your democratic right, and we hope you use it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Steve Paikin. Good night from Montreal.
Thank you. Enjoy that.
Bon anniversaire.
All right, Kits and Cubs. Wanted to show a little bit of the stuff at the end as well, because, turns out they're human beings after the debate, right? They actually go out and talk to each other and shake hands and share a couple of laughs and stuff. So yeah, there you go, Kits and Cubs. The closing statements. Again, Mr. Carney, everybody doing what it is that they needed to do in those closing statements. I, again, particularly liked, Mr. Carney's. I can't buy Mr. Poilièvre as the hope and change guy. Every time he seems to refer to hope and change, I keep on hearing Sarah Palin in my head going, "Oh, that hopey changey thing," except instead of hopey changey, I keep hearing nopey ragey instead. So yeah, but hey, except to me, watching this, it definitely was clear to me in terms of my take that Mr. Carney delivered the performance that will probably resonate with the greatest number of people. Not flashy, but there were elements of humor. He did show that he was able to control. There was a couple of times when people were trying to interrupt him. He just went like this with the finger, and the person stopped. Right, and there were other times where they continued. He was able to assert himself, assert his space. Um, he brought lots of substance. He had plans. Right, for every one of the 5 categories. At one point, there was an answer that had like 3, 4 things in the plan, and we laid it out and maybe had like 2 or 3 of those in there. So again, if you're looking for someone, this person looks smart, they seem reassuring, they seem like they've thought about this a lot, they have a plan. Mark Carney's your guy based on what you see there, right? But they're also performing for their audiences. So this is what when I said I saw one leader actually being a leader and trying to make a national pitch, and then 3 of them trying to save the furniture of their own. So Monsieur Blanchard trying to create a moment that he could take and go viral to swing votes away from Carney and drag them to himself. Mr. Singh just basically going after everyone that he could and trying to, be as visible as he can and making good points and being present, showing that he can fight and talking about healthcare and those types of things, trying to send the message, that yes, but when it comes time to do something for you, who do you want in your corner, right? And I mean, he did as best as he could to sell that message, but we know where we are in the campaign and what the polls are saying, right? So, and there was a bit, as I mentioned, a little bit of no fucks left to give from Mr. Singh in this one, given some of the comments that he had, and then Mr. Poilièvre, as we said, needed to have a big night tonight in order to switch anything, and all of his attempts were failing, and it didn't materialize the way that he wanted. So everybody came in with a plan. Everybody came in with an agenda. Some of the plans were multifaceted or had a couple of levels because while Pierre was trying to do that, he was also clearly trying to make sure that he was throwing enough red meat to the base. Same thing with Mr. Singh in terms of, trying to, be the class warfare guy. Monsieur Blanchet, the same thing as being, I'm the one that will speak for Quebec and make sure that your voice is at the table and guarantee that. So they each had groups specifically that they were fighting for. Unfortunately, it may be that the groups that they are fighting for are too small. They're not global enough in terms of the full population for their message to reach as wide as they would like to. But a very substantive debate, entertaining in that there was some fire and there were some attempts at punches and roundhouses, some that didn't land, some that did, but they were there. They went for it. They were trying to position themselves. They tried to make moments happen. And in that, we did get a lot of substance, and we did get some clashes of ideas, and we did get, even at least one of them trying to show us that it was more than just a talking point, but that he had thought about it in several layers and that there were plans. So overall, a good quality debate, and same thing with the French one. I have to say, good quality debate. Well moderated, both of them, even though the French debate, French language debate, very obviously had much more intervention by the moderator, but also way more balanced in time. I don't know if you guys got a glimpse of the time clock near the end when they were speaking here. Well, what do you know? This time, the good stuff actually works for me. I went looking for it and I was able to find it rather quickly. So I will bring it there for you and just show it to you if you noticed by the end of the night. Here we go. Mark Carney got 32 minutes of speaking time. Pierre Poilièvre, 28 minutes of speaking time. Monsieur Blanchet, 24 minutes of speaking time, pretty much, or 20, a little under that, and Mr. Singh about 22. So on both debates, Mr. Singh is the one who spoke the least, and Mr. Blanchet, who was really behind at one point when he started, I guess, taking a bit more control from the moderator and allowing himself to speak and giving him some taking time, managed to get a lot back. But the spread, right, greater than 10 minutes between the person who spoke the most and spoke the least. Whereas if you look at the time scores in the French one, the top three were all almost like within like about a minute and a half of each other, and then Mr. Singh was in back. So well moderated in terms of keeping discussion flowing and stuff like that, but maybe not in terms of ensuring equal speaking time in this case for this debate. So there might be some people who might want to make a case of it. Again, if you're going to focus on that, though, that's a bit loser talk going into the last 10 days. So we'll see what happens. The one thing I want to mention before we go with regard to all the stuff that happened with the Federal Debate Commission is that, like we mentioned, the post-debate scrums got scrubbed as a result. And I was wondering last night, well, I figured, okay, the comms teams from the various parties, probably got a hotel room or one of the head campaign offices and are sending, messages to all the journalists, like, come over here and, setting up a camera and we'll do it. It turns out that was not the case. It turns out that Monsieur Singh is the only one that did choose to have a post-debate scrum. It seems that when the debate was over, the other three parties decided that if it wasn't happening, they weren't going to take advantage of the opportunity to try to spin how it is that their candidate won. To me, that's pretty telling in that sense, because it seems to me that if M. Poilièvre truly had believed that he had done that well, he would have arranged for himself that type of opportunity. I could see Mr. Carney not organizing that opportunity because at this moment, if he feels that he has done enough to win, minimizing the number of speaking opportunities, so opportunities for gaffes, and just trying to coast through on some safe messaging or messaging that would be more well received and that type of stuff. So I would very easily see from Mr. Carney 1 day event and one evening event only per day for the rest of the way. And hopefully that Donald Trump says something along the way and he can take off the candidate hat and put the prime minister hat on maybe one or two more times before. So he's maybe hoping for those types of opportunities. But I would say that he would probably be going into a frontrunner's campaign from this point on. Monsieur Poilièvre will probably be trying to multiply as many opportunities as he can for visibility, I would suggest, and to launch attacks. But I think he's very, 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 very much going to be focusing on the rallies. And one of the ways that we can find out how nervous each campaign is by how much time they're going to be spending campaigning in the last week in ridings that are usually considered safe for them, or whether or not they're in ridings that might at some point might have appeared long shots, but they're going to go and try for more. So where it is that they decide to travel over the next little bit might give you an idea. But I get the sense that because Monsieur Poilièvre and Monsieur Blanchet did not feel the need to do their own scrum afterwards and get that out, my guess would be is they know. And the heart wasn't in it at that point. Walking out of the debate room and going to the place where everything's already set up but leaving there, taking time to get to the new place, waiting for everybody else to arrive so you can, that's a lot of time to think. Especially if your night didn't go as you wanted. And that does not maybe put you in the best position to do a scrum. Right after the debate, you still have some adrenaline and stuff. So there might have been a reason that only the member of one party decided to do one. That's just pure speculation on my part, kids and cubs. I have nothing to substantiate that, but just speculation. All right, kids and cubs. Thank you for staying with me on this one. I'm so sorry it was so long. It definitely would have been shorter. where I'm able to have Mr. Grizzly with me the entire way to help do some of the production stuff. But hopefully, the technical part did not draw away too much from the analysis. I have no idea what this is going to sound like as a podcast. I might not actually release it as a podcast. I might try to skip this one and just leave it as an internet exclusive because hearing me say for about 3 hours, oh, I'm sorry, oops, I missed that, probably wouldn't be that entertaining for people who are not seeing the visuals. So, yeah, I guess I will leave this one as an internet exclusive. But if you have friends that are looking for more in-depth analysis of various points of the debates, please do direct them to this episode. Okay, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of second episode of the douBBeaver day here at the Beaver Lodge. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me for so long, because I did enjoy making this for you. This allows me to geek out, and that you were here with me to share that with me. Thank you. You make me feel a whole lot less weird. It's nice to know that I have good company of equally geeky friends. Let's put it that way. So, geeks of the world unite. You are welcome here. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. If you would like to, oh, pardon, excuse me. That might be a sign that it's for me. It's time for me to sign off. If you would like to help us out, well, hey, maybe you want to do that by making sure that you do not miss an episode of our podcast, our audio version. For those of you who are on the go, if you scan that QR code, thanks to the Ray Girl, that will bring you to our pod page. That's podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Kids and cubs, if you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it goes directly in your podcast feed. You don't have to come searching for us. We make it very simple for you. So please do subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Now, if you would like to help us out in other ways, Kits Elaine and Kit Cassie would certainly urge you to take a trip down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where our buttons like, share, and subscribe are demurely and thoughtfully waiting for you so that you can click them. Just give them a little click. It makes us happy, and it helps us with the algorithm. And we thank you for your support. If you would like to help us in other ways, for example, by helping us with the cost of the show, because we do incur some to bring some to you, we have a tip jar. We affectionately call it the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund. And if you are able to make a little donation there to say that you encourage us to do more because you like what we do and it resonates with you, we would appreciate that very much. And we thank you for your generosity. Now, if you're not able to donate financially, please do not worry, because the gift of your participation and attention is the one that matters the most to us. Please write to us. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is where you can let us know what you think about the show, or send us a Q&A question, anything that you would like to know about politics and would like to have our take on. We're happy to answer your questions. Or if you'd like to know how things work with the show, behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, how we put it together, we're happy to take all of your questions. So please write to us at TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com and let us know your questions and your comments about the show. We read everything. We really do. We're not able to get back to everyone, and everything you say goes back into the show to make it better. If you would like to write to us on our socials, True North at True Eager, at the Blue Sky, and on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, and right here on YouTube. If you're watching, leave us a little comment in the section. All right. Because democracy is something that you do, of course, the Liberal leadership race in Quebec, results will be coming in June. Do what you need to do for that. In Manitoba, the 26th will be the results for the Progressive Conservative Provincial Party in Manitoba. And you need to get your mail-in ballot in by the 22nd. It has to be in the office by the 22nd. So please do what you need to do to make sure that your vote is in on time. And of course, as Mr. Bacon said at the closing, he did the democracy is something that you do for the elections. So, you know, all the voting dates and the advanced voting dates, we're in it right now. Democracy is something that you do, but don't do it alone. Bring some friends with you, okay? Because we need to get that voter turnout up, particularly for this election. Words of wisdom. Have plenty of Kleenex and don't try to do a podcast when you're all stuffed up. It's less than graceful, but I do thank you for your indulgence. That's all I got for wisdom. I'm a little tapped out today. Kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and very gentle with yourself. And now I'm going to have to invite myself to cue the cock, which I will do right now. Mr. Beaver, cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, I don't really have an Easter egg for you, so I figured that instead, maybe a couple of offerings from the Great Book of Dad Jokes. Like that. I'm not weird, I'm special. I love it. All right, so a couple for you before we go. Did you hear about the cheese factory explosion? There was nothing but debris. Ah. Did you hear the joke about tofu? It was tasteless. Ah. And one more. Why did the donut go to the dentist? Anyone? It needed a filling. Ah. A couple of dad jokes for your good Friday on douBBeaver podcast day. Everyone, big love to all of you. Thank you so much. Yes, as Kitlinda M says, Women's Hockey Championships this weekend. Cheer for Team Canada. I believe the next match is against Finland, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. And I am now gonna go out and make sure that I'm loaded up on decongestants for the rest of the weekend so that I can come back Monday, not stub-dub, and that way you don't have to listen to me do a podcast like this. Thank you for geeking out with me. I love you all very much. Have a beaverific weekend. And if you're celebrating this weekend with friends and family, may your celebrations be warm and joyous and loving and full of laughter. All right? Bye, everyone.